My apologies. We are called to order at 6:30 p.m. on September 2nd, 2023. We will start with a moment for prayer or reflection. The City of Medicine Hat acknowledges that we live and work on treaty territory. The city pays respect to all Indigenous peoples and honor their past, present, and future. We recognize and respect their cultural heritages and relationships to the land. Next up is adoption of previous council meeting minutes dated August 18th, 2025. Any errors or omissions to point out? Seeing, oh, is Ramona online?
Okay. I am Mayor Clark. I was going to ask for one amendment to the minutes.
Okay.
Just, I think, for the sake of understanding what really happened there. And I thank you to the clerk for noting these things, but what's not reflected in the minutes is the fact that I was attending remotely. So it's got me present, left at 6:48 when I had connection issues, but it looks like I was sitting there and I just wandered away, which isn't quite what happened. So if we could just add next to my name that I attended remotely. I think the connection issue, if someone really wants to know why I left, then they could watch the meeting and know that I had connection issues. But if we could just add that I attended remotely for that period of time, that would be very helpful. And I do apologize to the group. I was really prepared and looking forward to the discussion, but I could not keep a connection. And I kept, as you know from the closed meeting, losing the conversation and asking people to repeat. And then finally it just kind of stopped working altogether. So I do apologize. I did try, but anyway,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Is that appropriate? Okay. That amendment will be made and we will adopt the minutes as amended. Adoption of this agenda. There are a few items from the clerk, if you wouldn't mind going over them.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clark. So through the chair, 11.1 11.5, the item is additional council meetings will be heard before 11.1. Additionally, for 11.1, the sponsor should be Development and Infrastructure, not Municipal Planning Commission. And that was all I had.
I think there may have been an additional amendment to the request for decision.
Oh, yes. In addition to it changing to Development and Infrastructure, the sponsor, that will also be reflected on the request for decision. And then we will republish the agenda with those amendments tomorrow.
Thank you. Any further amendments? All right, we will adopt. These are just technical amendments, housekeeping, so we'll just adopt the agenda as amended. Next up, we have, the consent, Councillor announcements. I understand that Councillor Sharps has an announcement. Oh, we got a few here. We'll use the speakers list and then I won't miss anyone. Councillor Sharps.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clark. So just a quick announcement. It was probably 2 weeks ago, Mayor Clark and I had the opportunity to meet with an organization called Just Serve. And years ago, I think people will remember, we had a volunteer association in town that managed all the volunteers and they allocated volunteers as we needed them. They were called the Volunteer Society of Medicine Hat. And they kind of dissipated just due to some funding issues. So when Just Serve kind of reached out to us and asked if we'd be interested, I think people are always looking for volunteer opportunities, so I agreed to meet with them, and Mayor Clark was available, so we both met with them. So I just wanted to share with the public, because I absolutely didn't know that they were around and so active, but basically it's an organization that has a website where volunteer needs of organizations are posted, and volunteers and just everyday people looking to search for opportunities can literally log in there, find the opportunities, as well as organizations just can send them an email or a message and also get their event or any kind of volunteers needed. So it looks like where the Volunteer Association of Medicine Hat fell apart about 8 years ago, Just Serve has absolutely come to the table and created a nice connection for the community. So just so everybody knows.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sharps. It was a very informative meeting, and if you need volunteers, please do reach out to them. Councillor Van Dyke.
Yes, thank you. I just want to give congratulations to Andre Mueller, local Medicine Hat young man, and on his discovery in 2023 of a distinct and unique dragonfly species at a dig out in Drumheller. I had the privilege of watching him grow up through the years, and this doesn't surprise me at all that he has gone on to a stellar scientific career. But I just wanted to highlight that we have a lot of great science minds in this community that I don't think get a lot of recognition, and this is a big discovery for our area. And in this line of investigation isn't the right word I'm looking for, but you know what I mean, in this kind of work and research, thank you, yes. And I just wanted to congratulate him. I know that the city and I'm sure his family are very proud of him, and I'll pass it over to Councillor Dumanowski.
Councillor Dumanowski.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just to dovetail on Councillor Van Dyke's point, it's incredible to hear of discovery of a new species that had never been discovered before, and it came from a hometown, I was going to say boy, but now a grown man, Andre, a former student at a school I worked at years ago. So I'm like you, very proud of his contribution, and I can only imagine more great things to come, and his capacity to be someday nominated to our Hall of Fame wall there. Through the chair, my point I wanted to bring up today, as far as council announcements, is congratulations to the Porch Fest that occurred this past weekend. Rob and Shannon Pape, hopefully I'm saying their last name correctly, they started Porch Fest in 2021, and it inspired by giving artists a platform during pandemic when venues were shut down. There was, as we can all appreciate it, a need to create a safe way to create culture and community and vibrancy, and they did that. It's continued on, and was able to participate with this weekend's events, and a variety of music from folk to country to punk to classic to Americana, you name it, bluesgrass. But and it's free, other than any donation people wanted to make of their free will. And what a great community builder, all on the hill. And it was incredible to go to. I'm sure some of the city transit buses were not equally excited when they were trying to traverse through the streets where literally hundreds of people were gathered at or around different homes. So I just want to congratulate all the homeowners who participated and have contributed in their own way, and then the artists, of course, of their time to make Porch Fest 2025 a success.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing none, I will move on to consent agenda. Is there anyone who would like to pull any of the items from the consent agenda for discussion? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
So the motion is that council adopts the consent agenda items as presented or as amended and were presented. So we will vote on that. Thank you. And that is unanimous.
Mayor Clark? I
Oh,
didn't
I
say
am
my
so
vote.
sorry. Yep. Councillor Robbins?
I vote in favor.
So now it is unanimous. Thank you. Delegations. Today we have with us a delegation regarding regional food and organics waste update. And we are very privileged to have some heavy hitters here with us today. The mayor of Redcliffe, Dwight Kilpatrick, and the Reeve of Cypress County, Dan Hamilton, and they're going to provide us with a little presentation on what they're doing in their, for their food waste. So you can use the mic up there, yeah? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Good evening, fellow councillors, and I take that because I am one too, but not with you guys. So the reason why I'm here today is we have been playing around with composting out at our Redcliffe Cypress landfill site for about 4 years now. We got a government grant to build a concrete pad with ventilation running underneath the pad, comes up through grates, so we can keep our compost temperatures within reason so we don't have too many fires. And it helps expedite and speed up the process. We're licensed currently for 20,000 tons, but technically, because we're very small, on a good year we run about 5,000 ton. So we're very underutilized. And with that underutilization, we come across all kinds of infancy problems in that every time you look at a piece of equipment for shredding or chipping or screening, and they're all $1 million plus pieces of equipment, we struggle. So we contract out wood chipping when we have a great big pile. We bring people in. When we're doing our finished screening, we contract out somebody to come in and screen. And we don't do a lot of pre-screening, so therefore we're extremely fussy on what we take in because it has to be clean. We've been doing this for a few years and it's all right. We've been making do with it, but we happen to have a company that already leases a site at the landfill, and that's Ambipar. And what they do currently now is they soil farm from sites, mostly oil sites, but different sites. They bring soil in and farm them till they're clean enough, and then they become, most of the time it becomes dirt for covering on our landfill. This spring, Will Everts, and I believe he's listening to us because there's a WE up there, approached us to make us a proposal that they would like to expand their composting to not just do what they're already doing, but also to take over what we are already doing, because they see that as a big potential for them. And Ambipar is worldwide, so they have resources that they can draw from, and they've got people that should know. And so internally, they can do a lot of things that we can't. They're also big enough that if equipment is needed and they can foresee payback for it, they can go ahead and do it. So they did a proposal to us early spring to the landfill committee, and the landfill committee agreed that that sounded like a good idea to take it further and look deeper into setting up some kind of agreement. The agreement is not set in stone and signed yet, but it's extremely close. When I was talking with Will earlier, they already have some equipment being shipped to the landfill in preparation for them taking over our part of the composting and hopefully getting more business and carrying it on. With the work that they do, they feel that they can source more material than we could, and honestly, we weren't trying. Like, we don't have the manpower for that. And when you're in a municipal business, you don't go looking out to try to compete with private business. Sometimes they get upset when you do that. And so we haven't been trying to generate more composting material to help offset the expenses of running it at a quarter of its capacity. So now that they're going to be coming in and taking it over, I guess, and you are already looking at doing something different with your composting facility, and just newspapers and rumors, we're talking $18 to $20 million capital. There's operation costs on top of that every year. You already know what yours are now. And so I think what I'm here today to do is ask that you give our landfill and Ambipar a very good look and consideration to see if that would be something that you could see in the future as a working regional project. Ambipar is Ambipar. They're a private company. We're not going to be sitting there interfering with them. We'll have an agreement with them. They would be, if you were to work with them, you would be having agreements with them. But if you kept that 18 million in the bank, I think even Darren could find you, $500,000 a year in interest or something. And you still have a couple years to do whatever you're doing with your existing compost. I know there has been discussions with Will, from what he told me. The thing that was a concern to him and a risk that they would have to take is I think, and he can speak further on this, he was asked for a long-term solid price. And that's risky when you're just starting up and you don't know. Like, we don't know how clean your feedstock is. We have to pre-screen. What comes out is regular landfill. What we get to keep and compost is a benefit to all of us. Keeps methane out of our landfills. We all know the benefits of circular material. I'm not going to carry on with that, but I do think that with them taking over and with them already looking at bringing in equipment, and when I was talking to him, he says there's even a piece on a truck already coming our way that we couldn't afford. So they are committed to at least take this into a bigger operation than what we were running. I guess my ask would be that you consider giving it a look. And if you do want to try it, I would also ask that you give it at least a 2 or 3 year trial, because anybody can put a wrench in a 6-month trial. And so you do need time to work out kinks, figure out what works, what doesn't work. And in the end, that's the end of my presentation. There's a whole bunch of experts sitting over there. If there's Jock McRobb, he's our landfill manager, and Colin is Ambipar. He does all the work, Will does all the thinking. But I know Will is here to answer any more questions. So thank you very much, and I'm sitting down.
Thank you very, very much, Mayor Kilpatrick. Reeve Hamilton, did you have anything you wanted to add? No, I'll leave it. Okay, thank you. I have a question from Councillor Knodel.
Thanks, Mayor Clark. So kind of a comment at the beginning here. I would love what we have in front of us, having you here with us and having the opportunity to discuss a topic like this. I wish we could bottle this and replicate it for other situations, because to me, regional partnership is this. You coming forward, us sending a letter to Redcliffe, and then having you here is huge. And I would like to see more of it. So thank you for being here. Thank you for bringing your staff with you. That's a big deal. The potential for saving money to me is huge also, because I know the community, I've heard from a lot of community members, this is a service that the community is looking for. This is not just council's idea. This is something that we hear, and I hear, I can speak only for myself because, and Councillor Van Dyke, I am certain, that we hear a lot about. But I am curious. I'm at this point in time, conceptually, I love the idea. I'm curious about what you foresee as an annual cost to the city. I would assume it's not even gonna touch the $18-19 million price tag that's in front of us. But do you have any idea, or have there been talks between city staff about what it could possibly look like for cost for us?
If I may, and I'm absolutely, if you want to delegate this question to someone else, or answer it yourself, I think on those details, that's what they're asking us to look into. So I think we're maybe looking for more of a motion of directing staff to look into it, but does anyone have that answer off the top of their head? I think it probably depends.
Yeah, and if it's appropriate, I can jump in and give some insight to that, if you can all hear me and see me.
We can, thank you.
Perfect. Well, first of all, thanks, Mayor, for the intro, and thank you to the City of Medicine Hat Council for the invite to be able to be here. We're really excited to continue expanding on our relationship at the Red Cliff landfill, but as just commented on, also just with the region. You know, we were able to present at the intermunicipal committee meeting to present what we were expanding on at our Red Cliff facility. We've been operating there since 2011, so we really feel like we're integrated in that community and that operation, and we're excited to expand those services and opportunities beyond the Red Cliff community and into the larger community and area. So when it comes to cost, we did send a letter to council to give kind of a broad range and an idea of what standard industry range would be from a dollar per ton perspective. That's data and information that through any feasibility or just industry knowledge gives kind of a wide range of what that could look like. We're currently and have been assessing your feedstock. Obviously, it varies through different times of the year. We are currently actually taking trial loads this week from each one of your collection areas, so that we can get a good idea of different collection areas and the contamination level within the feedstock. Your team with your waste group has been super helpful on, providing us some background on information such as obviously the spring, there's a little bit more contamination in the feedstock when everybody's cleaning up their yards after the snow melts, and also seeing some variability throughout those seasons. So the answer is yes, it is going to depend, but if this is something that council wants to move forward on and it's not going to be an open tender opportunity, we're more than willing to present in the short term here a cost per ton, which then you could take and look at an annual cost to the program using the Red Cliff facility. But as I said, we're currently and have been assessing the contamination level in your feedstock. That's really what will drive the price. Having a clean feedstock, it's pretty straightforward. But as we know, there is contamination that you guys are seeing at your current operation, and we need to assess that and make sure that we're managing it in a more effective way so that we get a good end product to be able to put that back into the economy to be reused. So can reference that letter where an industry range is around $75 to $130 a ton for contaminated feedstock, and you guys right now, I believe, taking out your wastewater treatment solids are taking in about 14,000 ton per year of organics in your collection program.
You may, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Clark. I sincerely, through the chair, I sincerely appreciate your reply. I am curious for our staff, just where are we at? I know that our, I'm looking at Managing Director Hutter as if he knows, but I don't. Yep, that's the direction.
I think, Managing Director Bohan.
Thank you.
Or City Manager, yeah.
Thank you. I'm curious because this is a pilot project right now, where are we at with timelines for that? Or is that a continuing process? Do we have an end date for that? And how does that kind of tie into this potential transition?
Thank you, Mayor Clark, to Councillor Knodel. So we've been working at the request of council from last December to work with their regional partners. In June of this year, we were advised by the local IMC partnership team to evaluate this particular partner, and we're continuing to do that. We're going through a process where we identify the scope and objectives. The process that we're going through also includes some regulatory and data collection. So we're just really gathering data right now. Mr. Everett's referenced a assessment of different feedstocks. The product that actually comes in doesn't come in neatly stacked into, grass and food and biosolids. That has to be, other products come with that. So Mr. Everett's was referencing a good assessment that they have to go through. In addition to sort of that assessment that's going on by Ambipar, we're also taking a look at what the possible price implications are and other implications that might impact the report that we've been asked to produce for council, which will be a balanced report that has, that balanced scorecard will include the opportunities and the proposal that we may receive or entertain from external party, Ambipar, or whatever direction that is given to us by council. So we are anticipating, to get to your question on timing, we are anticipating Q1 to actually have gone through all of that financial analysis, get the information back from Ambipar and Mr. Everett's, and then we should be able to bring that balanced scorecard back for council to contemplate a decision.
Yes,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
I'm sorry, I through the chair to Managing Director Bohan. When we started the composting pilot project, that was prior to our direction of working with the region. So do you know what processing costs looked like prior to this investigation, and how does it differ from what we're pursuing as a solution here?
Well, we actually started that process about 6 months before. So June of last year, we actually started the process. And that's what we determined is, okay, how much work, how much effort, what's the risk, what scaling that project would be. So we're taking that information in the context. So we needed to do that first. Plus, we wanted to assess public perspectives on it, and on the concept, which came back very favorable. So we're going to integrate our learnings from that pilot project in as part of our assessment when we come back to council with a recommendation.
Thank you. Just for some additional clarity, the pilot project that Councillor Knodel was referencing was the food waste pilot project, where certain parts of our community got a little bucket and they put their food waste in there. So that has concluded and is being assessed or has been assessed. And then this project is food waste and organics. And we had discussed in budget, pursuing something on our own, and it was determined that we should council determined that we should look to partnering with the region on something like this. Direction was given to do that. We met in intermunicipal committee, which is the 3 regional municipalities, city, the town of Red Cliff, and the county of Cypress County. And so that's kind of a little bit of background. So that's why we're already a little bit along the way. So that's just some additional background there. Councillor McGrogan.
Thank you. So I'm going to start with a question only because I think it dovetails on what Managing Director Bohan has said so far. Now, this food waste program that we were piloting, and this may be directed at Ambipar and Managing Director Bohan, has there been, we're assessing now, now that we're not part of the food waste program, we're assessing what we do dump out of those green bins out there. How could that change if we were still dumping food waste into our green bins, as some of us were through the pilot project? How would that affect costs?
Are you talking about the yard waste bins?
So the yard waste bins, we dumped food waste in them during the pilot project, and I'm sure the costing is might be quite different, I don't know. So if we got grass mixed with food waste in the bins, I'm asking maybe Ambipar if it changes the potential costing of that, and I don't know if the pilot project that we're doing right now would include that, though I do applaud the project, the pilot project. And I just have some comments at the end.
Managing Director Bohan, and then I'll give Ambipar or the county or town an opportunity.
Sure, thank you, Mayor Clark, Councillor McGrogan. Yes, the pilot project for the food waste composting has concluded, so we're continuing with our yard waste program. And that's the question you've asked or the comment you've raised is exactly what we want to ascertain by entertaining and, thoroughly and rigorously exploring an option to take advantage of regional economies of scale.
Councillor McGrogan?
So the question really was, if we had food waste in those bins, and we're doing a project right now where we're trying to determine costing and efficiencies out at the Ambipar's site, does it change? I guess that's for Ambipar. I'm just curious if it changes the scenario much.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so definitely, it's a great question, and that is exactly it. We have to take all the different potential feedstocks and what's making that feedstock up, whether that's food waste and yard waste or grass clippings. So the cost does go up, exactly, and we have to take all of those things into consideration when we're designing, and the type of equipment that we're putting on site needs to be able to process that type of waste. The facility process that we are using would be able to take that food waste and the yard waste, your branches, and would be able to take those all in and be able to then depackage and take some of that contamination out of that feedstock, and then be able to sort it and then have appropriate materials to be able to actually compost. So yes, the price does go up, and that is something that we're taking into consideration. Just as if you were to do an internal facility, you would have the same types of costs and equipment required to do the same process. So that is why the assessment isn't as straightforward and as quick as going and looking at a few loads, because you're exactly right. We have to take in and project the growth and different feedstocks that we might see within the program.
Councillor McGrogan?
Yeah, thank you for that. This kind of reminds me of the trap, neuter, return program. I know more about garbage now than I ever wanted to. But it's been actually an interesting exploration, and Jacques up there gave us an awesome tour of the facilities, Councillor Sharps and I, earlier this year when we were doing budget deliberations around, where we're going with this and, capital costs and how could we partner with our regional partners. And so I really applaud the efforts of Managing Director Bohan's team for looking into this as requested by council. And I just want to make the comment that along this exploration, I think that if we look a few years down the road, we're going to see that we're not going to have an option about food waste programs. And I don't think that's really been discussed with us. If it was, I was maybe napping during those sections. But I think the province eventually is going to say, you know what, you can't throw food waste in the garbage anymore in landfills, and it's going to have to be cleaned and ran through a process. And I think that's a major consideration for where we go in the future. And I really look forward to us seriously looking at partnering as a region in this process. And if we can save economically and environmentally by doing that, then I thank you for the efforts, and I look forward to working this further through. Thank you.
Councillor Hyder?
Thank you, Mayor Clark, and through the chair. I love the idea of working with our partners. We should be doing this a long time ago with Cypress County and Red Cliff. I see nothing but positive things in the future, and working with Ambipar. Maybe, Will, you could just break it down for the general public how a day in the life of you being our contractee for this program, what it would look like for the city.
Yeah, for sure. So again, you guys have done an amazing job, and to comment earlier, I think, like we said, this is not going to be an option. Organics are going to have to stay out of the landfill in the future. We're seeing, we haven't seen any regulation on that yet, but there's, strong guidance and conversation and pressures on making sure that we're not putting organics in the landfill, because as they break down in the landfill, we create gases and there's a lot of other issues that happen within a landfill when you're having these types of organics break down within your landfill. The day in the life, you guys have done an amazing program where you have green bins where everybody's putting their yard waste in, and then it comes and gets picked up by a collection truck, and then it would be taken to the Red Cliff facility instead of currently it's going to your Medicine Hat landfill. It is received into an area, and then that material then goes through a process to get it to a certain point where we've taken any of the contamination. So that's any of the garbage that might be within that bin. That garbage is going to be removed and sorted out, and then that garbage is only going to be landfilled. The organics portion is then put onto an aerated pad into big windrows where it is mixed. You put a recipe together that allows it to break down efficiently and safely. And then with some aeration added to the organics, they start to break down and go through an active phase and then a curing phase, and then you screen. So these windrows get moved from one stage to another stage, and then they ultimately get screened to come to the fine point of a nice, clean, earthy smelling compost that many of you probably buy at a Canadian Tire or a local garden store, and you're putting into your flower pots. The overs of those materials then get recomposted as well to create more compost. Some of those soils or those composts as well are used in agriculture purposes for creating healthier soils. A lot of regenerative agriculture practices are using compost now. We have some great growers in the region and very fertile lands in the region that are looking for alternatives to get away from, synthetic fertilizer use, and they're able to now use some of these regenerative practices within agriculture. Oil and gas reclamation, as the city is aware, there's lots of that happening, and we're in the reclamation phase on a lot of your sites as well that require topsoil isn't easy to find in the area. There's amendments that can be applied for to be able to use compost within the reclamation cycle. So it's when you go to throw your food waste out from your house on a day-to-day basis to now seeing it, grow food at the end. Now it's a real circular economy component of where the food waste that you're throwing out to creating food on the back end.
Councillor Hyder?
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Well, thank you so much for explaining all that, because you make it sound pretty easy. I appreciate everyone being here from your company as well as Cypress County and Red Cliff. And I tell you, when people can do it well, just let them do it. So I'm in full support of having this move forward. So thanks again for being here, Will.
Okay, Councillor Van Dyke.
Thank you. Through the chair, I just had a question regarding the carbon credits that we currently receive. So we currently receive $400,000 in carbon credits per year for our diversion of green bin waste. I'm assuming that if we were no longer collecting green bins, that carbon credits would then go to either the town of Red Cliff, or the private service provider. And I'm assuming those will be figured into the information that is brought forward to the next council that makes a decision on this. Am I correct?
I would anticipate that is correct. Go ahead. Oh, I apologize. Managing Director Bohan had his light on. I apologize.
I was finger on the buzzer. Thank you, Mayor Clark, to Councillor Van Dyke. Yes, that's all going to form part of the recommendation to council. We're including those assessments in the as part of the financial comparison that we're going to be doing. So when we do produce this this assessment or this report that does the comparison, it's going to include the risks, the financial components, plus minus, and that'll all be included in that report we bring back to council.
Thank you, Will.
Yeah, I just do want to clarify. So, great question again. We will not be collecting your green bins, so that would still be a city program. So that's not the service that we're offering. So that would still be, a city diversion. And we do have experts on carbon credits. I would love to be one, but there's a lot of really smart people that do that work, and I'm not one of those people. But it is still you guys diverting your organics and your waste, and we would not do the collection. So like Managing Director Bohan has stated, that they'll put that in their assessment. But I want to be clear that that's not part of what we are doing. We are receiving your waste or your feedstock, to be able to compost it.
Thank you very much. I have Councillor Sharps and Councillor Hirsch. Before we go to them, I just want to give a heads up that I would like to ask where we are at in terms of a motion, whether it's needed or not needed. But I will ask that later. I'm just giving you a heads up. Councillor Sharps.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Through the chair, so that was my first question. Are we considering this a pledge from administration, or would you like a motion? Because I can draft one after I'm speaking. I'll let you decide what you would like right now.
Acting City Manager, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would recommend to have a motion giving administration direction on proceeding.
Okay, I can do that. Thank you. So I do have a couple.
I apologize.
No, go
Clarity, proceeding with the report coming back to council.
Correct. Not
Okay.
proceeding.
Oh, not today?
Yes.
Not today.
I was half written.
No,
Okay.
just coming back to
Okay.
council with more information.
Okay, no
Thank
problem.
you.
Thank you. So you should have seen Mayor Kilpatrick's eyes when he thought you were giving him the carbon credits. Like, I saw that all the way over here, Dwight. That was unbelievable. Yeah, sure. So just a couple of things. So when this came forward in the budget last year, when we're reading a budget package, and I'm excited for the new council when they get into this, you get really into reading your stuff, and when you don't understand it, you really do want to understand it more. So, Jock and the crew up there were great. They took us out. They spent hours with us explaining this, because it's important when we're sitting here not just to understand about feedstock and organics, but how does it impact the taxpayer? And so do we want to spend $15 to $18 million with infrastructure and ongoing costs, or do we want to look at a third party that also employs people and does private industry? And I'm always big on private industry. We want to keep our employees working and in their fields, and we want to keep our private industry working. So I wanted to say, thank you for that. You really educated us. And to Councillor Knodl's point, when she thanked Mayor Kilpatrick and Reeve Hamilton about coming forward, this is actually in all the minutes from the IMC since October. We've been working on this. I get to sit on that committee with Mayor Clark and those two up there. And it is, we work very hard to try to come up with some regional initiatives. So not just Medicine Hat is benefiting, but the entire region. Because if we can all work together, it is so impactful. So I think this year has been really good growth as a region for the committee, and we've went some bumps the first 2 years, but we definitely proceeded and managed to get some really good things done, and I hope that we can continue to do that. Next council will work feverishly, because if we can work as a region, that really does set us up. When we look down the number 3, they are booming. Let's just call it what it is. So there's no reason we're not working with our partners up there. I did have a question for Will. Will, can you just tell me, because you made a comment earlier in your presentation that you were asked for 10 years worth of financials. Is that normal, or is that something that you were not expecting to have to put together for a presentation to council or to administration?
Yeah, it was the request for a long-term solid agreement. So typically, no, we wouldn't get into that long-term of an agreement from a pricing standpoint. Obviously, from a partnership standpoint, something like a operating agreement, we would. But from a pricing standpoint, no, that's not typical.
Okay. And I had a question about feedstock. So when we're talking about feedstock, so my understanding was, and I could be absolutely out to lunch on this, so just tell me, when you take our feedstock and you sell it, is there profit back to the municipality? Or is that a cost?
So taking the feedstock is at a tipping fee that we partner with the landfill on. So part of that tipping fee does go back to the local community, similar to when the City of Medicine Hat's bringing in their contaminated soil from their oil and gas sites. When they support our landfill, a portion of that fee goes back to the local community and landfill.
Fantastic. Thank you. Those are the only questions I have. I look forward to seeing the presentation in full or the next council, and we can cheer from the gallery there.
Thank you. Councillor Hirsch.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just wanted to think about the economies of scale. My mind also goes with, we know that this is impending legislation that's going to talk about organics. So we know the answer, I guess, that for me would be, it's something that we have to do. So if we have to do it, which is always my mandate, how can we do it efficiently, as cheaply as possible, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just wondering, Managing Director, when you talk about giving us a report back, is that going to be an analysis on return on investment when it comes to, and I'm hearing numbers from 15 to 18 million. Last budget meeting, I think we were at 10 or 12. I know there's inflation on all this stuff. I do feel that in some ways we need to accelerate the decision-making on this because of those type of factors. But I'm wondering if I can ask for that information, return on investment, and then I guess for the most part, when we're getting the information, is the sources of the information in terms of pricing and all that, is that from within our city staff, or is that from consultants that I think did some work? I don't know. I'm just, my job is to understand the costs and make sure that the data that we're getting is accurate and correct. So I'm hoping that that's being the case, or maybe this future council, if it gets to that point. But I guess one of the things that I also would need if I'm making the decision is, we've got two alternatives in front of us, one potentially to partner, the other to do it ourselves. I guess some of it might be, is there any deficiencies, if any, in terms of the partnership? Because I think we'd be all foolish to think it kind of makes sense to do a partnership, and that's where certainly I'm leaning. I don't think the food stock or the needs of the citizens of Redcliffe and or Cypress County are any different than ours in terms of the efficiency of the food stock, getting it composted, getting it, you know, through the circular process back as compost and out the door. So I just want to understand the pros and cons, and hopefully we can get that to that point. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any further speakers on this. So I want to thank the presenters and our regional partners for the presentation, as well as Ambipar for their contributions. And at this time, if there is a motion arising, I will accept the motion.
I got the feeling from Acting City Manager that you would prefer us to wait. I'm happy to do a notice of motion and bring it forward to the next meeting, if that would work easier and better for you. If not, we'll do it right now.
No, go forth
happy?
with, yeah,
Okay.
no.
Business arising, Mayor Clark. Give me a minute. I happen to have one, half written, so just about done. I will share it right now. Stephanie's giving me a look.
Also, while we have a second here, I will note that we understand that if you view the city council meetings online or the video feed, you can't see the motion that gets put up on the screen. And we are working on solutions for that, just to make it very clear what the motion is.
Okay, they have it, but I will start reading it if that's okay, Mayor Clark.
Yes, please do.
Okay. So I wrote a little debrief on it. So they're going to organic waste update, whereas the Regional Management of Food and Organic Waste presents an opportunity to reduce environmental impacts, improve our sustainability, and optimize waste diversion. Whereas Ambipar, as a service provider, has expertise in managing and capabilities in managing and updating regional food and organics waste. And whereas the regional waste diversion strategy may require updating to reflect evolving best practices, regulatory frameworks, and new technologies, be it resolved that Council directs administration to engage with Ambipar to gather relevant data, technical assessments, and cost-benefit analysis to support an informed decision on participation in regional food organics waste update. And be it further resolved that administration work with Ambipar to complete the necessary information and present it to the council for review and decision on best path forward. I don't think this will come in before our time. I'm highly susceptible that it can't come in the next 3 weeks. So but I do think it should be in front of the next council before the end of the quarter. So December of, yes, please, Q4 of 2025.
I'll second that, Charlotte.
Thank you. Rondi, can you remove the part on the last paragraph where it says council/committee and just make it council? Since the presentation's in council, should come back to council. Thank you.
All right. Councillor McGrogan.
Thank you. The only thing I'm thinking of with this motion is we're not mentioning the food waste aspect, I don't think. And I'm wondering if there's some way that, I know we're not doing it right now, we're not collecting food waste separately, but I think part of the future is we will be. So is it in there already?
It says the Regional Management of Food and Organic Waste.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Any further debate or discussion on this one before we vote? Oh, Councillor Hirsch.
Just to clarify, I think there was a date specific that Councillor Sharp said.
By Q4?
2025.
Correct. What was that?
Both, I think. Are you wanting the Q4 2025 to apply to both aspects
Yes,
of the
please.
resolution?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see, does that satisfy your question, Councillor Hirsch?
It does, thank you.
Okay, so seeing no further speakers, we'll vote on the motion as presented on the screen. It just has to be reset. All right, Councillor Robbins, how do you vote?
I vote in favor of the motion, Mayor Clark. Thank you.
All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you again for your presentation to our council and willingness to work with us. Next up, we have some unfinished business. 10.1, Medicine Hat Exhibition and Stampede Funding Request Update. So Managing Director Hutter has an update on this item. Go ahead, Managing Director Hutter.
Thank you, and through the chair, following the August 18th council meeting, Councillor McGrogan and I had a productive meeting with representatives from MHES and our consultant. We reviewed some technical drawings and had a conversation regarding the proposed project. The MHES representatives took this conversation back to their board and have made the decision to request that this request be put on hold for the time being.
Thank you very much. So, it's on hold as in like a extended period?
Thank you, and through the chair, I wasn't given a date. It will be, I would imagine, several months before they would like to return, but there was no particular date given on when they expect to return.
So we will have to amend the previous motion because I think it had it coming back to this meeting. So I believe Councillor McGrogan, you waived.
I did waive.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Just to add, I guess to confirm, I spoke with Mr. Edwards this morning as the rep for the Stampede Board, and I think what they want to do is a little bit more rigor around their economic planning and want to present that when they come back the next time. So I don't know how long that will take, but I can confirm that he does want some time to do it properly.
Okay, just as an FYI, the reason that Andy is working on this with Managing Director Hutter is that he's the councillor assigned as the liaison to the Medicine Hat Exhibition and Stampede Board by this council. So basically, we are wanting to postpone until until administration brings it back. Like, what do you think is an appropriate timeline? We don't want to lose it, obviously, but.
Thank you, and through the chair, no, we certainly won't lose it, but we would be waiting for direction from the Stampede when they feel comfortable with their new strategy and approach, and we'll be, frankly, very excited to bring it back to council at that time.
So my suggestion, my preference is always if you postpone something to put a date on it, but what about, just for council's consideration, postponing it pending further discussions with Medicine Hat Exhibition and Stampede Board? Would anyone like to make that motion?
I can make that motion.
Thank you very much, and it'll come up on the screen. I hear typing. Any seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Dumanowski. Okay, so the motion says council postpone the Medicine Hat Exhibition and Stampede funding request pending further discussion with the Medicine Hat Exhibition and Stampede Board. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on this motion. Oh, go ahead, Councillor McGrogan.
Thank you. I raised my hand, but maybe you didn't see it. So I just want to make it clear that is the exact words that Mr. Edwards used today is he'd like it postponed, so I think they'll be pleased with that.
Fantastic. All right, we will now vote. Councillor Robbins, how do you vote?
I vote in favor, Mayor Clark. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's unanimous. Thank you very much, Managing Director Hutter and Councillor McGrogan, for your work on that. Next up, 10.2, the City of Medicine Hat Transportation Master Plan, active transportation, transportation safety strategy deferral, all of those things, deferral. And this is out of Development and Infrastructure. We have Sandeep Parikh here. He's the Acting Director of Municipal Works, and he has a presentation for us. Is that accurate? Okay, yes, go ahead.
Mayor Clark, with your permission, I'd just like to make a brief introduction for the team today.
Yes, please do. I notice one of the presenters has a spectator in the audience as well, so welcome.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor Clark. As you stated, the recommendation before you is that council postpone consideration of the Transportation Master Plan, the Active Transportation Strategy, and the Transportation Safety Strategy until Q1 2026. So tonight, as you mentioned, Acting Director Parikh will provide a summary presentation of the follow-up to the non-stat public hearing for the transportation-related strategies that was held on July the 7th. Despite nearly 2 years of extensive public engagement, it's obvious that that was not enough. On July 7th, in addition to comments on the master plan and related strategies, we heard several important issues raised by the community that were not directly related to those strategies, and that included not feeling heard by staff and council. There were concerns about the speed of change. There was insufficient reasoning provided for the change or modification. We didn't speak enough as to the why we're bringing things forward. There's feelings that there was inadequate public input during the design and project construction phases, and there were deep concerns about roadway width that would be narrowed or could be narrowed before meaningful public input was gathered. Given that public feedback, we have more work to do in capturing a broader range of public interest, and by adopting this motion, we'll take those steps necessary over the next few months to try and rectify that. And with your permission, I'll hand it over to Acting Director Parikh to go through that brief presentation that summarizes the 7 themes.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hirsch, are you waiting till the end of the, yeah, okay, go ahead, thank you.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. This brief presentation that I'm going to make is an update and a follow-up to the non-statutory public hearing for the Transportation Master Plan and related strategy held on July 7th. At the hearing, we heard from 29 speakers, and prior to the hearing, we received 113 written submissions for the Transportation Master Plan. City staff compiled and the comments and the concerns and drafted a what we heard report. Since many of the remarks were similar, the report was divided into themes. Following the What We Heard report, we developed a public hearing summary which outlined the themes and how some of the comments would be addressed by the TMP and how TMP might be amended. Both these reports will be available on project website this coming week. Like Managing Director Bohan mentioned, like in addition to several comments, we also got some feedback related to, which were not directly related to TMP, and he has listed some of them. I can quickly go over that. Well, the most important one probably is not feeling listened to by the staff, feeling listened to by staff or council, concerns about rapid change, insufficient reasoning for change or modification, inadequate engagement during design and project constructions, concerns with snow removal and general road maintenance practices, and predetermined road width with limited public perspective being gathered. In the next slides, I will present some of the major theme of concern which captures the majority of the feedback gathered, starting with the most common ones. Theme 1, considering impact on communities. Many submissions and presentation focused on design of upcoming projects such as 3rd Street in the Riverside or future projects such as Kingsway Avenue. Concerns were raised that corridor design would impede safe traffic movement and parking, create challenges for truck routes, emergency vehicle, and negative impact local businesses. There were also concerns about project costs and whether funds could be better spent elsewhere. There were questions about active transportation infrastructure and design features such as the red storm concrete, number and width of driving lane, and the inclusion of roundabouts. Now going forward, for larger projects involving corridor level upgrade, the city will follow a project delivery process that includes developing the project goals and scope, creating conceptual design options, presenting these conceptual designs along with rationale for the project to the community member, businesses, stakeholder, and institutions for feedback. The engagement could be a combination of one-to-one meetings, letter drop-off, Sapier city event, or dedicated project website and open houses. Followed by reviewing feedback from the initial engagement, this may involve an iterative process with specific stakeholder or businesses to flesh out any aspect of the conceptual design. After finalizing the conceptual design, the detailed design for the project will be developed that meets the community need while addressing the project's main objectives. And finally, return to present the final design and provide information about construction schedule and timelines at an open house. theme 2, traffic calming measures. Many residents raised concerns about the bump outs or curb extensions as traffic calming measure, stating that emergency vehicles, buses, or large trucks or trailers would struggle to make turns. Some participants suggested the turns are possible with driver training or practice, while others felt they were not feasible. Regardless, based on the oral presentation and written submissions, bump outs were not widely accepted. There was also mixed views on many roundabouts. Some opposed them, while others supported them if traffic volumes warranted their use. Now, traffic safety strategy outlines that the City of Medicine Hat to develop and adopt a traffic calming policy and procedure, which we currently don't have. This policy will define the what, where, when, why, and how of implementing traffic calming measure. It will also clearly outline the public and stakeholder engagement process to get buy-in from stakeholders prior to any installations. Project-specific traffic calming measures will be reviewed and scrutinized by stakeholders during project design development phase. Concerns were raised about removing lanes of travel on arterial or collector roads to support active transportation. Some residents felt it would cause unnecessary congestion and reduce traffic safety. The Transportation Master Plan recommends conducting comprehensive road corridor studies on busy roadways to identify the measures that support all modes of transportation and prepare the city for a future population of 80,000, which is the design horizon of this TMP. At the project design phase, corridor design will be context-specific and developed with stakeholder engagement. Changes will be made to TMP strategy to reflect that current and future traffic volumes and parking demand will not be negatively impacted if any active transportation infrastructure is introduced as part of any project. Roadway optimization. There were questions about the term roadway optimization and the concern that it'll imply all roads will be narrowed. Transportation Master Plan clarifies that the roadway optimization means rehabilitation designs will continue to accommodate current and future traffic volumes and parking demand while meeting current design standards for all modes of transportation. Again, the design for future road corridor upgrades will be context-based and stakeholder engagement will remain a crucial component of the design development phase. Residents expressed a strong desire to prioritize maintaining existing infrastructure over building new projects. They shared examples of existing roads and trails that were not well maintained or accessible due to snow or gravel. There was a clear preference to make existing infrastructure usable year-round before pursuing new construction. The city recognizes the general maintenance is critical for safety. Maintenance of infrastructure and adjacent vegetation is also important. The city aims to review and revise current maintenance policy and standards and programs and practices to better support all modes of transportation, transit, and transportation safety in general. This will include reviewing the needs of increased seasonal maintenance along roads, multi-use trails, and sidewalks. Some residents highlighted the need for better education on trail use, especially with the rise of e-scooters and e-bikes traveling at high speeds. This feedback was often linked to requests for improved signage and clarity around pavement markings like elephant feet. A trail etiquette guide can help educate users and promote safe and respectful behavior. Active Transportation Strategy connects to Action B14 of Parks and Recreational Master Plan, which identifies the need for a trail etiquette education program and proposes upgrades such as signage, increased width, and line painting. The last theme, downtown parking, although not a dominant theme, concerns were raised about parking availability, parking configuration, and impact to accessible stall during construction in the downtown core were reported. Transportation Master Plan recommends a comprehensive parking study for downtown to identify issues and provide solutions for both on-street and off-street parking. Stakeholder engagement will be central to this study to ensure strategies reflect real needs and demands of the downtown businesses and stakeholders. So as next steps, we will make amendment to the Transportation Master Plan and associated strategies to incorporate feedback from the submissions and the public hearing. This will involve additional engagement with residents and stakeholders. A new engagement strategy will be developed and approved by the council. The Transportation Master Plan related strategies will be reintroduced after this engagement process is completed. Our target is to bring forward again these documents, the Transportation Master Plan and related strategies, in first quarter of 2026. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful that you took the time to analyze what we heard and try and create a sense of being heard in our public, from our public, and making sure that what we're doing as a city aligns with our community. So I appreciate that. I have a question from Mayor, sorry, good grief. Councillor Hirsch. Doctor, yeah.
Thank you for that. Thanks for the presentation. I guess it just goes to show, and I'll just say the power of the people, but I think the challenge that I think I run into, and certainly staff, is kind of the balancing act between kind of best practices, what do you see out there, what's the future looking like compared to what we have present day. And I guess as citizens, they're saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So that, I think that's the challenge. Your job, and I certainly been there, and it's funny how it's the pendulum swings a little bit over a few years of being around here, is we once had a planning department that said, we want to emphasize the efficient movement of traffic. And that meant less egresses, less ingresses, let's just like almost the idea of an interstate, if you will, at the provincial level, certainly within the city of Medicine Hat, that idea. Now it's more adaptation to not just the vehicle, potentially bikes, potentially pedestrian. But I think the challenge that I run into is I've been to those conferences, I've watched the boroughs. I was just in a very major, I was just in New York City where, you know, you're in boroughs and all your elements of what you need to thrive in that borough is right in front of you. I could walk to the grocery store, I could walk. The challenge that I think Hatters have, and I certainly do, is we're not really a borough. Like for me to shop, I physically almost have to get into a vehicle and drive to a store, a major convenience store or a major retail store, if you will. Or if I want that convenience store, walk to the convenience store and pay an exorbitant amount for whatever you need, right? So I guess my question is, I know we're talking about the TMP and the ATS and the TSS, but I guess people watching are worried about their neighborhood. And I guess my first question is, what does this deferral mean for specific capital projects that we have on the go? And so do those stop figuratively and literally because we're doing another look at this? And I guess more specifically, you mentioned 3rd Street downtown, that's all kind of been put to bed, but you've got people at Riverside, on Kingsway that are worried for their businesses and worried for the impact of what we would be potentially looking here. So I guess that's my first question is what about those specific projects and what is happening there? Are they being shelved upon production and execution and approval of this strategy, or what's the plan there?
So I think there's two different questions probably, and I'll try to answer them. The projects that, like future project like a Kingsway, is not even, you know, at any stage where we can say it is go or not go. So that is like, you know, Probably we don't want to really get into too much of that discussion right now because it's not a project at the moment for us. When it comes to 3rd Street, again, I kind of outlined what the process we would like to follow for any capital project. And 3rd Street probably is, we would like to follow that process. We have done the first engagement. We've presented the concept design. We've got lots of feedback. We will take that back, try to develop, design based on the feedback we have got, and we'll go back again in an open house and present that. Still, it is not finalized. There's no like definite, there's still room to kind of adjust or improve on those designs. So that'll be the next step. So getting feedback is very important. And we have, like, for example, 3rd Street in the Riverside, we went and mailed about 1,000 letters to all the residents, brought them to this open house and displayed the concept design. That was the first shot of that design. It was a concept design. We wanted to get feedback, and we did get a lot of feedback. And we'll now try to improve on that and kind of come up to a more refined design based on the feedback, and again go back in an open house to present what we heard and how we are going to implement those comment or concerns that we have got. And then again, there's still room to improve. So that's not final. This is again, and that's why like there is sometimes the design is an iterative process. I've always went back and given examples of a South Railway where it took quite a long time to kind of come to a design that was kind of acceptable to the stakeholders, but at the same time still meets some of the project objectives. So it can be an iterative process. So 3rd Street, we will try to go to the next level where we have got a lot of feedback, try to improve that design, present it, get more feedback, and see how it goes. If that answers the question.
And it does, I guess, and I guess there's a lot of people that understand the concept of what you're putting out there. So I appreciate that at a high level, 100,000-foot level, that's kind of what this is all about. But people literally want to know what's going on in their backyard or their neighborhood. So I think I just want to allay any concerns of what we're doing, because a lot of people, they're just going on with their lives. So sometimes if our communication strategy has been missed, or something's happening in their backyard and they're not aware, and now they're clamoring. And I was around when what would that be? South Railway Street was reimagined, and I had people just absolutely at their wits' end phoning me and exasperated because they were worried that something was proposed and they didn't have a chance to have that sort of discussion, which does lead me to my second question. So if the plan's on achieving more consultation, but yet you've still got your design principles that you'd like to meet, and sometimes that's going to have an accident, it's going to not necessarily agree to the two concepts, and I can only presume your process is going to be more of an iterative one. You're going to get some feedback. What does that potentially look like if you can draw some comparisons of what you look in the future when you expand the consultation? What would that look like? Would it be, is it democratic? If you had 100 people that said, I don't want it, I want it this way, are you going, oh, that was one person saying that, but what a great idea? Like, I think in some ways, what's the strategy when it comes to consultation? Because we all know around this table that there's different levels of consultation. You can just get told, and by the way, I'm consulting, I'm telling you, or versus saying this is a highly adaptable, we're looking for your feedback. I'm just trying to understand scale going forward as you indicate that you wanted to open this up even more. What does that look like?
That's a very difficult discussion to have because, I mean, there's always going to be, two sides to each story. Like, there's a design, people like it, people don't like it. But then as long as we have got direction from the council that these are the high-level objective that we want to achieve, we will try to deliver on that. But at the same time, people and the stakeholders are very important. So it can be an iterative process. We can go back and forth on certain, aspects of the design, certain things to flesh out the details of those design. But I think at the end, in my experience, we always come to a good understanding, and majority of the people kind of are kind of, understand where we are going with that and how it's kind of, overall picture and plan of the city to implement that project.
And I'll just give you my honest feedback. If And I understand that the Division Avenue project, for example, we have it now. I guess my feedback would be is what we have now, I wouldn't have supported. So I don't really understand what happened on if there was a disconnect of what we have now versus what was envisioned. So I guess and I'm just offering you my honest feedback, that I think it would be helpful for that council of the day to understand fully what they're engaging into. And I don't know if that means physically going out to the development and saying, by the way, this sidewalk's not gonna be here, it's gonna be here. And here's the turning radius, and, because, you know, all a person has to do, quite frankly, and again, I know we're talking about this, but the projects are children of this overall theme. And when I drive by and see on Division Avenue, the multitude of tire tracks going over the curbs tells me that we've missed something.
So, to the chair, if just want to respond to that. So again, I kind of try to say that in my presentation, design has to be context-based. So each design is different for each corridor. So what you see on Division is not what, like for example, 3rd Street in the Riverside. Parking is a major of importance to the resident. We all recognize that. Division was a different, corridor. Parking on that street was a little different. So there are going to be context-based design that it's not a cookie cutter kind of solution that one size fit all. It has to be different, and it has to be developed based on what the corridor requirements are. So again, and as it's an iterative process, sometimes we have to spend more time, more effort to get to where we want to get to. So I think that's what we'll aim for. We got the first round of consultation done. It was we got a lot of feedback, and very good feedback we are looking to improve the design. We'll try to present it again, and you will see once it's published and it's displayed, you will see how much effort we have made to actually listen to the comments and how we have kind of modified that. I think, in my opinion, at this stage, we are probably 90% already kind of, looking at those comments, saying, yeah, I think we have looked at it and sort of, kind of address most of the concerns, in my opinion.
No, and I appreciate that, and I guess the only thing I'll leave it with is, the worst thing we could ever do is open it up for more discussion and then present and action something that totally rejected a lot of the consultation, right? So that's even probably more, would fan the flames of frustration. So appreciate your effort.
And just one last comment on that. I think the design process that I outlined, maybe there's one more step in that, wherein, there's a champion from the council side that sits with us as a group and kind of, maybe better way of. So I'm not saying that's the way. I'm saying we have to work on refine that process.
No, I thank you for that. Yeah. And I think we're all game for anything, to be honest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I will say I appreciated your beginning statement of explaining the why. I can't remember which of you said it. I apologize. I think that's part of it too. Like, if we are rejecting some of the feedback, why, like, what is the reason for that? Because sometimes that can solve the problem in and of itself. I have Councillor Sharp's next, and I'm wondering if, in addition to your comments, questions, if you would be willing, as Chair of D&I, to put a motion forward?
I would. I also have a business arising motion that I sent out to the clerk as well. So I'm just going to speak. Would you want the first motion on the table first?
You are permitted to put forward whichever motion.
Well, I do think it needs to be postponed, but I'm going to do my motion first, but I'm going to speak to it first. So I appreciate this a lot. I appreciate that you took everything back and surmised it. I guess one of the things that, like, this has been driving me crazy for quite a while, because I used to drive Division every day for 27 years, and I don't go on that road anymore. Like, it's not my thing. However, I do want to be very clear. One of the things I heard throughout the entire public meeting and the non-statutory and meeting with people is no one is opposed to making sure that we have multi-use pathways. I have never heard that. What I do hear is, let's not steal from Paul to give to Peter, and let's not take from Peter to give to Paul. We can all live together. There is that Division Avenue multi-use pathway is beautiful, and I love to see people on it. It's the 900 feet of red brick, I think, that is driving people crazy. And so when they say, you know, I used to drive up that road and it's very congested now, I won't drive it, so I get it. But I think we need to make sure it's safe for the people on the multi-use pathway, but it also needs to be safe for the drivers, and we want to be able to have free flow of traffic. And I guess one of the things after all of this, and we leave the public hearing that day, or the non-statutory public hearing, and I live right off South Boundary in Vista, and I feel like we didn't learn from it, because South Boundary just got ripped up, and there is literally cement partitions going in that's making those roads narrower. Yeah, I drove it today again. I walk it every day with my dogs, but I drove it today. And so I was stopped there for 10 minutes, and the lovely flag person walked up. I said, is that a new Meridian? He said, yeah, you like it? No, but that's okay. So my point is, whether I like it or not is totally irrelevant. I want to make sure that if we say we're going to go out and listen and talk, let's listen and talk. So the last time we put a kind of a moratorium on anything to do with the transportation safety plan, we literally took away parking downtown. So to your point, there was very few themes around downtown parking, but it's because they screamed at the last one. So I just want to make sure that, when I look at my last year's worth of notes on this, came to committee, we sent it back. This council didn't actually approve design. You saw, we got the picture, and the pictures are beautiful, but at no point was I ever told that you're going to actually lose a lane of, and to your point, you did say to me, it wasn't a lane of driving, it was an unused parking. But I can tell you, I never used it as parking. I undercut that road all the way, every time. So even though the city might have used it as parking, the users didn't use it as parking. So we got to get back to that user level. So what I don't want to do is leave it to chance for the next council. One thing I have learned in 4 years, that if we don't make a motion of council, it does not get done. So I would like to make a motion of council for public participation as a business arising, and then the next council can decide if they want to shred it, or at least we can set them on the right path. But my motion is as follows. Whereas effective governance relies on, I'm just going to read the preamble first. That I wrote, relies on transparent, direct, and unfiltered communication between the public and council. And recent public engagement efforts, such as those related to Division Avenue, have demonstrated that significant community feedback is not fully being or clearly conveyed to council. As council recognizes the importance of receiving raw, unthemed public input to better serve the community and make informed decisions. Therefore, be it resolved that council directs administration to review and revise the public participation policy to include options for the next council that ensure all public comments received through engagement processes are provided to council in the original unedited form. Summaries or thematic analysis, if included, are supplementary and not a replacement for the full record of public input. And clear mechanisms are established to ensure transparency and accountability in how the public feedback is collected, reported, and considered in the decision-making. And that administration present these policy options to the next council no later than December 2025 or Q4, or known as Q4, allowing sufficient time for the review and implementation by the next council. I would really like, if we've only got 60-some days left, make sure that we set up the next council to not have to get through some of these gray areas and really just be able to hit it running. And so I think it's just really important that we set the stage for some really clear public participation. One of the things I heard loud and clear throughout every time was, how come I can never talk to council? How come I can never get to council? So they need to, if that's what they want, I think to Councillor Hirsch's point, times change. So as they fluctuate and they move, we adapt. And maybe in 4 years, they don't want to talk to council again. But for right now, I think we just need to look at how we participate with our public. So there you go. That's it for me.
Would you be willing to add in, I just am looking,
Yes, more than likely.
the deferral?
I was doing that separate. I was going to do it after.
Oh.
So it's 2 second motions,
Okay.
if that's all right?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
We're gonna need a seconder. Councillor McGrogan?
Yes, thank you. I'll second this, and then I have some comments about this as it relates to this particular topic. Now or on the speaker's list?
If you wouldn't mind, I'm gonna go to Councillor Dumanowski, because he was on the speaker's list, and then I will come back.
Thank you, through the chair. I don't have any specific questions. I do have some comments, I guess, some thoughts, and par for the course for Councillor Sharp's motion. I can't help but feel for all sides on this issue. I see Acting Director Parikh speaking on some of the themes that were identified through that non-statutory public hearing, and my sense is that they are thoughtful, comprehensive, and done with a sense of humility. Not projecting how you feel, but that's my observation, that there is some true, meaningful reflection, both professionally and personally, I think, as staff and as a council, that we all have to bear when it comes to what occurred in that meeting and what precipitated that. And when I think about the era we're in, where we have all these tools, we have all these mechanisms, Shape Your City, social media, et cetera, to create public engagement, sometimes we don't get it right. And that is not to say, and I wrote down here, feedback versus criticism. It feels like criticism if it's pointed, if it's in complete objection to something that's been put forward, but it also can be and meaningfully perceived as feedback. We all signed up for this, even staff have. But I do recognize, and certainly the learning for me out of this is what we constitute as meaningful public engagement and what the public feels is meaningful public engagement. Maybe we're a little bit at loggerheads there. I think about some of the amendments to the MGA that came about a number of years ago, which challenged municipalities, required, quite frankly, directed municipalities to create more means of public engagement. And even though that was a direction from the province, it was something I think we had always done, having been here for a while. But I think there was and remains every attempt to engage with the public in a multitude of ways. Some of the open houses that occurred, I know council attended and other in the public, and I saw them there. I saw them engaging, and part of me was stumped by the immensity, the emotion that was coming out of some of the feedback at that non-statutory public hearing, considering we had done, as has been indicated by Managing Director Bohan, that we had done 2 years of engagement. We had all these opportunities, but it would be easy for me to surmise that that was adequate because it seemingly was not. I think in the end, what we have to reconcile, and I heard that and I sense it, and I think it will be formalized through the motion, is that there's every opportunity to learn from this. And the public, in theory and in reality, gets it right. And so what may work in one community may not work here. What works in one iterative approach or a specific project may not work at the next. But what we can deduce is certainly that the public favors and values very concrete, specific opportunities to engage with the staff and with council at the time that they're specifically looking at a project. And I think that is part of what you had said, Sandeep, and so I think we're all on the same page. In the end, what I worry about, or not worry, I'm concerned is that there are best practices out there. There are urban planning professionals out there who bring a willingness to enhance our transportation corridors, our active transportation plans. They're well-intentioned. I have no doubt that they're extraordinarily well-intentioned, but in the end, they're very city-specific and project-specific, and that's my conclusion from this. So what the public wants to understand is that that whatever amendments come forward in the future, we're not going to compromise planning principles, and I'm not trying to project this on the urban planners, but we're not going to take urban planning principles that we feel are a must, and we're going to somehow veil them with high-level objectives that the public will find confusing or will not concretely understand at the time that those projects are being put forward. And so I welcome the pause on the plan. The province, quite frankly, has weighed on this, and it's not the first time, and it is, having been here a while, it's unusual when the province weighs in the middle of a municipal issue or conversation like this. And so it tells me that we're all listening to the same taxpayer, and we're trying to respond in kind. And I certainly believe that is the motivation of staff, and certainly it seems of this council. So I welcome the pause. I welcome the enhanced opportunities to formalize more formal feedback opportunities for the public in the future. And in the end, I'm certain we'll get it more right than we did this last time. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Van Dyke, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, I had a question for Councillor Sharps about this motion. I'm just wondering, it's my understanding that we will or the next council will have a public participation framework coming to them shortly that has been in the works for a while on Shape Your City. And I'm wondering if you want to add or revise to say that this be in the public participation framework rather than the old policy, because I think it's replacing the old policy.
My understanding was the framework would be the precipice to the policy.
Hold on just a second. You'll have to use the mic.
Come up here and use the mic, Colleen.
That is Communications Director Colleen
Putting her
Graham.
shoes back.
Good evening, everyone. I can provide a bit of an update. So bringing forward policy updates in December is likely very feasible. We have drafted a new public participation framework. It was completed in January. Projects that have launched since that time have been done under the guidance of that new framework. So some of the projects that are longer term in nature, such as the Transportation Master Plan, the original engagement for those projects started in 2023, I believe. So it's only been projects that have been at the inception since the beginning of 2025 that we've been piloting this new framework. So we're currently compiling a report base right now that outlines some of the early successes in that framework with smaller scale projects. So committing to this motion that's on the floor right now is something that we're already doing the work for.
Excellent, thank you.
Councillor McGrogan. Thank you, Colleen.
Thank you. I'm looking at this motion and I agree with it. I seconded it. I just wonder if it really is touching what we're talking about right now, which is actually the plan that's in place and the fact that they want to postpone it. I think this standing on its own as a motion is perfect. But there's nothing in here about that, because we could be talking the potential of an MCC. We could be talking about a swimming pool. Anything that we're engaging on, this is an excellent motion.
Thank you, I'll take that as a compliment.
But yes, thanks for interrupting me. But I actually just don't see it as being applicable to this particular motion. But I do agree with it.
Yeah. May I, Mayor Clark?
So I'm just gonna ask, are you making an objection to this being business arising?
It is.
No, I'm not. I just don't want to mix the people here. I don't want to mix this up with what's their motion is to postpone the traffic master plan so they can look at it further and do further engagement. That's the here. This motion is completely separate. I just don't want the community to be confused about the two.
I see. Yes, thank you. So we will need a separate motion to defer. Councillor Sharps.
May I just clarify? Sorry, that's the first thing I said, was I would be doing this motion next. But I have a business or rising motion first that I wanted to. Because to your point, it isn't just about the transportation. It is about the MCT. It's about everything. It's about how we interact with our public. So taking the presentation, I did the business arising. The second motion is after this motion.
Okay. So we're going, I don't see any further speakers, so we're going to vote on this motion that's on the floor or table, and then I will go to Councillor Sharps for her next motion. Councillor Robbins, how do you vote?
I vote in favor.
Thank you. That's unanimous. Councillor Sharps?
Thank you so much, Mayor Clark. So I move that council postpone the consideration of the Transportation Master Plan, the TMP, the Active Transportation Strategy, the ATS, and the Transportation Safety Strategy, TSS, until Q1 of 2026.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Councillor Knodel?
Thanks, Mayor Clark. Through the chair, I just want to say that I appreciate you pumping the brakes in regards to this. I'm just speaking for myself that I love action, and I love to see a bright, shiny new project. And many people in the community know that I'm often a representative of those who are in favor of active transportation. And for me, there's a safety element to changes that I see myself being a proponent of. However, I'm not blind or deaf to the needs of the community and their voice. And again, I'm reiterating what many around the table have already said, but I want to say thank you. I think change also, especially when it's, when we need to find compromise between multiple voices, the pace at which that change happens needs to be slower so we can hear and see what people have to say. So just hats off to you and your team for hearing the community, and I'm eager to see how we can find that compromise in these future projects, because I think that we have a big community. We have lots of different voices and ideas, and like Councillor Hirsch said, this feedback is about the people who live near these projects and work near these projects. And there's many different types of people in the area. So there's a way to do it. And I heard some really great ideas in the transportation master plan conversation, whether we thread the active transportation paths down a non-thoroughfare, like that, those kind of ideas are available to pull from. So I am eager to see what your team comes up with after continuing to listen. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now vote on the motion to postpone. Councillor Robbins, how do you vote?
I vote in favor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is 11.5, which was moved up before 11.1. And this is additional council meetings. And I'm going to turn it over to the city clerk because I believe there was one slight amendment you wanted to make to this.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. And through the chair, so it was observed that the additional council meeting that is supposed to be occurring, or that is requested on September 17th, will actually be taking place when the police commission is going forward. So we recommend that an additional date can be reviewed after the September 15th meeting if necessary. But just to remove that additional date for Wednesday, the 17th, and then just have forward Monday, September 29th.
So you're looking for a motion just to schedule the September 29th at this point? At 4 p.m. Can I get a motion?
I'll make that motion, yeah.
Thank you.
I'll second. Oh, Are you going to read it?
Yep, I
Got it.
sure was. I move that council approve one additional meeting to be held in council chambers following regular procedures on Monday, September 29th, 2025 at 4 p.m.
I'll second that.
Thank you. No, that's good. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on this motion. Councillor Robbins, how do you vote?
I vote in favor of the motion.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Moving now to 11.1. This is bylaw 4860, rezoning of 2055 Samus Drive Northwest. This is for first reading only, so there won't be debate. It's just to get this matter on the table so that we can have a public hearing and vote on second and third reading, debate and vote on second and third reading at a later time. Can I get a motion? It is DNI. We changed it, you're right.
Yeah.
We changed it at the beginning, yeah.
Oh.
But it doesn't matter who makes it.
Okay, I'll move that council gives first reading to bylaw 4860 to rezone 2055 Samus Drive Northwest.
Thank you. Seconder?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Canoto. And we'll vote. Councillor Robbins, how do you vote?
I vote in favor.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to item 11.2, Community Spirit Award Selection. City Clerk, would you, oh, no, is this one is Councillor McGrogan.
Corporate Services.
Corporate Services? Sorry.
Okay, Your Worship, I can move that. I move that City Council approves the recipients of the City of Medicine Hat's 2025 Community Spirit Awards as per the Community Vibrancy Advisory Board recommendations.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Nope. Go ahead, Councillor Knodel.
Thank you, Mayor Clerk. I just want to say that congratulations to the future approval. If we're approving these names, there will be a congratulations. So we have a great deal of volunteership in our community and people who put their heart into the things that they do to serve the environment and to serve those in need. So I'm excited to release these names into the wild and have a celebration.
Would anyone, should I just read the names? And then we don't have to wait in suspense. So for arts and culture, the recipient is Bev Duke. This is the recommendation. Community inclusion, Davy James, Dan Hager, and Julie Lacasse. Compassion, Shay Fedoric and Paul Carolyn. Environment, Marilyn Kuzler. Sports, Recreation, Glenn Morey. Heart of Medicine Hat, Laverne Noble. Changemaker, Medicine Hat Skateboard Association. Okay, Councillor Van Dyke.
Yes, thank you through the chair. I just wanted to give my thanks to the Community Vibrancy Advisory Board and Councillor Knodel for doing the heavy lifting on this. They review all of the submissions and make their recommendations forward to council. I know it's difficult because there's a lot of really involved good-hearted people in this community that give a lot of time and effort to making this a wonderful place to live. And so I know it's difficult to go through those applications without wanting to give awards to everyone. There's a lot of deserving people in this community, and we appreciate the work that all of them do to make this such a great place to live. So thank you both to the committee and to the applicants. And well, I guess it's not the applicants, people submit the names. So people don't submit their own names, people in the community submit people. So they have to fill out quite a lot of paperwork and gather information. So thanks to those for doing their work, and a special thank you to the nominees and recipients for all of the work that you do in the community. Thanks.
Thank you. So seeing no further speakers, we're going to vote on this motion. Councillor Robbins, how do you vote?
I vote in favor, Mayor Clark. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's unanimous. Next up, 2025 senior administration expenses. I am going, Lolo, do you want to, or sorry, Acting Managing Director Barta, you want to speak to this? Thank you.
Okay, good evening. This motion was brought forward to council on March 3rd, and the motion was to publish twice a year line item details of all senior administration expenses for business travel, meals and hosting, and employee recognition. This item then went to closed corporate services on June 12th, and it was recommended that the report adjust specific transaction details and that council discuss the original motion to potentially change it from a public report to a regular internal audit through audit committee. This item was again presented to council on July 21st, and council directed administration to return with recommendations to balance public transparency regarding the reporting of senior administration expenses by the end of Q3 2025. So this is in front of you again. Today, we've provided two options for council's consideration. Option one is a summarized report that provides totals of each account for each senior leader, but does not provide detailed transactions of what makes up each line item. Option two, which is what is being recommended, is a more detailed report with adjustments to specific transaction details. So what we've done there is we've kind of cleaned up the data to make it more simple and more easily to understandable. So for instance, some of the credits and debits that you would normally see in our raw data of general ledger has just been cleaned up to eliminate some of those ins and outs. We've also removed some of the confidential or sensitive information from the text. So that would be like individual names or names of businesses. So we are recommending that instead of publishing this report on the city website twice a year, that the report is presented in open audit committee annually as part of the year-end reporting. And this usually occurs in June, so Q2. This report would then flow through to open council as part of the consent agenda. The reason for this recommendation is that administration expenses are to remain within the budget that has been approved by council. These expenses have to go through an approval process and management oversight, as well as follow internal policies and procedures, and are also subject to an internal audit by the finance department. We believe that this option balances the public transparency as well as the audit committee oversight. So I can take any questions that you have at this time.
Thank you very much. Councillor McGrogan.
Thank you. Thanks for your work on this. I'm the one that made the initial motion. It's been changed quite a bit really since the original motion, but I'm curious why we wouldn't publish it, why we've decided to put it in a consent agenda, which I guess a council member can pull out in an open meeting. So can you give me the rationale about why consent agenda once a year versus just publishing it publicly?
Sure. So it would go to an open audit committee where it would be discussed and reviewed at the open audit committee, which is in a public forum. And so by doing that, we felt that there wasn't a need to publish it on the website.
Yeah, thank you. So I think you found, I guess, a balance. I'm in favor of this. I think we're getting more transparent as we go along, and I think that's what our community wants. They want, we're spending their money and they want to see it. So I appreciate the efforts that have been made, trying to balance all of the, including expense of staff to complete these reports. But I think it's really important, so thank you.
I have a question about how this is coded. So it doesn't include like the work code, like, so if, for example, a member of the executive's administrative assistant puts something on their P card, does that, for the member of executive, does that show up on here?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, it has been included in the report. It does take some time to filter through the data, so we want to make sure that we've captured all of the data appropriately and have categorized it in the right areas as well.
Thank you. Also, just as a comment, given the attachment of this, the expenditures to the budget, I think it would be very helpful during the budget for there to be a detailed breakdown for council's employee, because I understand it was approved in some larger chunk of money, but it wasn't broken out for council of what, what amount is for travel, what amount is for expenses. I think that would be very helpful for council. And I would also still suggest that, I believe this was discussed at an earlier time, that we request from our auditor a review of our policy. I know a draft came forward some time ago and it was sent back. There are some things I think that could be improved with respect to rigor and transparency. For example, that the most senior person at the meeting pays for the whatever hosting costs or whatever there. So I would still encourage that, but that's, I think, audit committee decision that will, or recommendation that will come forward. Yeah, go ahead.
If I can respond to that. We are working on that business expense policy, and we've updated it. There were some additional suggestions through the municipal inspection report, so we decided to pause until that item was resolved in case we had to go back and adjust the policy further. So that will be coming forward, yes.
Thank you very much. Yes, please.
So I move that council approves option 2 to include a detailed report of senior administrative expenses with adjustments to specific transactions detailed to audit committee, details to audit committee annually as part of the year-end reporting. And I apologize, I probably should have put that motion forward prior to making my comments. I should have did that, so.
I'll second that, Andy.
Thank you very much. Seeing no further speakers, we'll vote on this motion. Councillor Robbins, how do you vote?
I vote in favor, Mayor Clark. Thank you.
Thank you. And that is unanimous. Next item, 11.4. 1064 First Street Southwest, Land Development Direction. And with us, we have Kevin Redden, Director, Environment, Land and Gas Production, and Randy Buckner, Manager of Land and Real Estate. In attendance, Managing Director Pancoast, would you like to introduce?
Sure, thank you, Mayor Clark. Council may recall that a notice had been put forward on this item introduced by Councillor Dumanowski, and subsequently on July 7th had been amended following debate of council. And that direction was for staff to come back with options that would restrict development on 1064 First Street Southwest to single-family or medium density and to limit development to a maximum of 2 stories or a building height of 10.5 meters. Staff have since outlined a number of options for council's consideration that meet this ask and expand upon it. And Manager Buckner will walk council through all of those options. But I'd like to take a moment just to offer some clarity from a role and process perspective. So it is a bit unique where this is a scenario where the city is both the landowner and the regulator for planning and development on this parcel. So that ultimately means there's 2 stages to how we're approaching this. This first stage is with the landowner hat on, and a second stage will be as the regulator hat, at which point council could consider changes to a bylaw, amending bylaw, for instance. At this stage, the land and real estate team represented through Manager Buckner is also the steward of the property and is asking council to provide guidance on the conceptual direction to pursue for future land development purposes. With that direction, the land team will then take the direction and apply to the city's planning and development team as the planning authority to pursue those changes. If a land use bylaw amendment is required at that time to meet council's preferred direction, then planning and development will review the land team's application and then provide council with a recommendation as the development authority or regulator. Depending on the nature of council's direction, formal input from the community would occur as part of the planning and development process. For instance, during a public hearing, if there is a request for a zoning change. So just to clarify those 2 hats, it is a bit unique where we have both the landowner and the regulator hat on, but ultimately to help determine the options that staff have put together and to determine the direction that council would like to pursue, I'll ask Manager Buckner to walk us through. Thank you.
Just before you get started, the second stage.
Yes, sorry, Mark Clark. The second stage is once we receive direction from council, if it, for instance, involves a rezoning, then the land team will submit an application to the planning authority, represented by the Planning and Development Services Department. They would review and assess that application and then come forward with a bylaw amendment and recommendation for council's consideration. And if that involves, for instance, a public hearing, that would be opportunity for public input at that time before council makes a final decision on the property.
Thank you, Manager Buckner.
Thank you, Managing Director Pancoast, and good evening, Your Worship and Council. I wanted to provide a little bit of background regarding the property itself. So the city has owned this property since the 1970s. It was originally owned and retained for upgrades to the Trans-Canada Highway. In 2020, it was determined that the land was no longer required for these needs, and council approved the sale of this property on the open market at the July 6, 2020 open council meeting. So currently the property is zoned a mixed-use district, and the city did have a sales agreement with a developer in 2023. This sales agreement had conditions pending on it. The developer made a development permit application, which was appealed by the neighborhood. However, the Subdivision Development and Appeal Board upheld the approval with design conditions. In 2024, the developer decided not to proceed with the transaction, and they did not meet the final conditions of the sale, so the property remains on the open market today. So as per council's request, in this report, we have 4 options that we're presenting. These options reflect approved policies such as the Municipal Development Plan, available districts within the land use bylaw, and acknowledging the statutory and regulatory processes to make a land use bylaw amendment. It also considers benefits to the broader community, such as the opportunity to provide more housing options, as well as highlighting land sales and development as a means for municipalities to generate alternative revenue, build the tax assessment base, which in turn helps support stabilizing potential future tax increases and offsetting future cost pressures. These options also consider the highest and best use of the land while acknowledging what is physically possible, financially feasible, and technically viable. So there's pros and cons for each option listed, and I won't go through every detail, but I wanted to highlight a few important aspects within each. So the first option is for council to direct administration to bring forward a land use bylaw amendment to rezone the property to medium density residential district. This option is recommended as it aligns with the broader benefits just discussed, as well as existing policies. This land use, though, on its own, does not meet the entire intent of the motion, as the allowable height within this district is greater than 10.5 meters. This aspect can then instead be managed through strict conditions within the purchase and sales agreement. This is a tool that has been successfully utilized elsewhere, which requires a purchaser to agree to certain design criteria as part of the agreement. There are other options to restrict the height. This could be through a restrictive covenant. However, this does run the risk of potentially being discharged in the future, as it may contradict the land use bylaw. And then there are other options of creating a new overlay in the land use bylaw to restrict development height, but this is not recommended, as this would create a new precedent. The second option is for council to direct administration for a land use bylaw amendment to rezone the property to direct control. Council then becomes the development authority. This is a zoning option that would meet all of the objectives of the motion. The drawback of this option is that it may limit the city's ability to attract a willing purchaser and a developer, given the complexities and the extended timeframes that come along with that option. The third option is to direct administration to rezone the property to low-density residential. This option is not easily accomplished, as there are servicing constraints and further work that would be required to make this feasible. Those extra servicing costs would result in a financial loss to the city. There are also other areas available and better positioned to support single-family development. And then finally, the fourth option is to keep the zoning as is. This zoning is the best alignment with the municipal development plan, and all residential uses, however, can be appealed. This option may not meet the spirit of the motion, as a public hearing would not be required. So should council direct administration to make a land use bylaw amendment, this will provide the formal opportunity for the community to provide their input into a statutory public hearing. Administration is aware of the concerns from the adjacent neighborhood. These were identified through the subdivision development appeal board hearing. In the options provided, Land and Real Estate's role is to make best efforts to align community expectations, community needs, while also encouraging private investment. These three perspectives, however, are challenging to bring together, and they can often differ. So today we're seeking council's direction on which option to pursue, and then following that direction, we will make an application to planning and development, and then council can decide following a public hearing to support a rezoning or not. And happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Can someone explain to me why 10.5?
I suspect that may need to come from Councillor Dumanowski, as it was in the original motion.
Through the chair, I'd be happy to give my response to it and then some other feedback. So 10.5 was guidance that I actually got from administration at the time. The terminology that I was proposing to bring forward was worded differently. I was asked when it was reviewed by staff, senior staff, that it be more aligned with the terminology or vernacular used in planning. And so the 10.5, and some of the other terminology was brought to my attention as adding some additional clarity around what I was trying to propose, and yet meet the spirit of alignment with what and the intention of what I was trying to bring forward. So that came from staff.
Thank you. Sorry, I apologize. What I was talking about was the height, the suggested height. And the building height for 3 stories in medium density is 12. So this would be somewhere between 2 and 3 stories, basically? Okay.
Through the chair, yes. I believe the intent behind that was to accommodate up to a 2-story building and what the typical height of that would be.
Got it. Thank you.
So through your worship, I certainly hear what is being brought forward today. I admit, and maybe I'm confused, and I'm never afraid to admit my confusion, but I certainly feel that what is being brought forward today is in contradiction, or it's certainly not in alignment with what I had proposed. I mean, it certainly is up to council to agree or disagree or choose a best option. But none of these options, in my opinion, in lay terms, meet the spirit of what I was trying to bring forward on behalf of the community. When I look at the options, they essentially speak to status quo, which clearly, certainly in my assessment and the assessment of the neighborhood, is not adequate or appropriate. Again, up for council to debate and decide. As far as kind of projecting this forward to say we will, we're the landowner and we're the developer, so there's that immediate, not conflict, but consideration. To say that, well, we'll bring it back, we'll create a zoning up to medium density, but then we'll bring it back and we'll look at restrictions around height, conditions, et cetera. There's no specificity in that motion that I can appreciate, unless I'm missing it, that says anything more than what we're probably doing right now, except to say that there's some attention being drawn to it, and so we'll consider it. My interpretation. The option 3, to go to low density, I mean, when I look at that, if anything, that would be the one that would best serve the intention of what I was trying to bring forward, again, on behalf of the community. But I'm also sensitive to the fact that staff are indicating that such a measure would be inadequate as far as costs that have already been sunk into that area. So I feel like in some ways we would be going over and above what I was asking for. And of course, I already spoke to status quo. So the other comment around restrictive covenants, I understand that, and essentially that's what I was attempting to do, is as an interim basis until the municipal development plan could be amended at the appropriate time, and that particular parcel land could be put under greater scrutiny, and there would be more public input at that time. That in the meantime, we would avoid, I'm going to be honest, a sales transaction that goes over and above what the public and the neighborhood public have indicated they would prefer. You know, it's no different than that master transportation plan we were just debating a little while ago, and the opportunities we've created for the public to give feedback. And yet, when it came to the time, to the next portion of the development, which kind of fed into that whole master plan review and discussion and debate, people don't feel it until it impacts them. I understand the sensitivities around catering, if that's the word, to neighborhood desires around developments or restrictions, but that's what that neighborhood has been advocating for years. And so in the meantime, in the background, we're working on things. We're making commitments to them that we're going to review the municipal development plan. We're going to come back with, and we're going to have the public will have the opportunity in that area to give their feedback. In the meantime, a proposal for development comes forward, and it directly contradicts or comes into conflict with what we were telling the public in that area. That's the problem. And so I'm getting passionate about this because I feel like this, for me, and I'd love to be corrected, feels like more of the same. It feels like we are railroading, we're creating a diversion from what the public wants. We have 2 more meetings after this. If we can push it past that finish line, maybe there's hope that it'll be ignored or it'll go away. As long as I'm here, it won't. And certainly today I'm asking for council's sensitivity around what that neighborhood has been asking for. I know they've communicated out their wishes. So call it future commitment, call it restrictive covenant, call it what you want. They want to be heard, and I want to make sure they're heard.
Councillor Dumanowski, as this is obviously not exactly what you were looking for, but it arises out of your original notice of motion, do you have a motion that you would like to put forward?
Well, Your Worship, I did see the Managing Director Pankos with her hand up, and I value her her response or input, not to my tirade, but to what I'm trying to put forward and match against what the public has been asking. So I would love, and I mean this genuinely, your thoughts on all that and which one best suits that. I did say, and if I can, at that time when we were discussing, I said what matters most, because I think there were questions around clarity around the motion, and there were no planning people here. And my comment was, well, they knew it was on the agenda. Why weren't they here? So they're here today. Thank you. But what I said is the spirit of this conversation matters most, because that becomes part of the public record. I'm not sure it mattered much if we don't make the right choice tonight.
Managing Director Pancoast.
Thank you, and I simply want to offer some clarity of intent. We perhaps missed restating the 10.5 or two-story limit that was in the original motion, but that's what we are intending as part of, when we're alluding to the height restriction, that's what we're intending. We weren't trying to redefine the height restriction. We were silent on it because it was so front and center in the original motion, but we should have been clearer in the drafting to restate the intended height restriction. The intention by staff was to offer directly the height restriction as part of a contracted approach. That certainly council has options around, as Manager Buckner stated. The motion had indicated single family or medium density. We've offered one of each, and staff have recommended medium density, but council can certainly debate beyond. But our apologies, we didn't mean to be silent on the 10.5 or two-story, the maximum thereof. It was so front and center in our mind that we just referenced it as height restrictions, but we can certainly and readily would accept that back into any resulting motion.
Thank you very much for that clarity. I assume that's quite helpful.
If I could, I know there's a speaker list. No, that is helpful. So that would be option one, correct?
Correct. Any reference to height restriction, we were presuming the maximum of the 10.5 or two stories.
And is that presumption embedded in the zoning or the requirements, the maximum requirements under medium density residential? Or is that just implied?
Through the chair, we would be happy to insert it. And when we are alluding to restrict development height through conditions of the real estate, or the purchase and sales agreement, that's what we could readily replace restrict development height to actually define that as 10.5 or two stories. So apologies, that was our error in not restating that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm just looking to get a motion on the table. If we could, oh, you have a question? Councillor McGrogan?
Thank you. I just had a question of the presenter before there's a motion on the table, and I'm curious about option 2 and the cons, which is the zoning may limit the city's ability to attract a willing purchaser and developer, as they must be willing to proceed to an approval stage, Can you tell me on a risk, I guess at a scale of 1 to 10, how much of a risk is that? There's a lot of buildings that are direct control now. I'll say my comments, but being this is an issue that affects both the neighborhood and our community as far as tax base and all that goes, what would be, how restricted would this be?
Through the chair to Councillor McGrogan, with a lot of the developers within the community who are looking to do medium density residential or this type of development, it often is advantageous for them to have a zoning in place where they know what the outcome is going to be. And so with it being direct control, there can be additional steps that have to be taken, which is it comes forward to council. There's extra timelines. They're investing their time, energy, and money into drawings and submissions that they don't know what that outcome will be. And so there's a lot more certainty around a development if it's medium density and they know it's permitted than with direct control. So it's a risk. It really just depends on what and who the developer is that we're able to have interest in the site.
Councillor Canoto?
Thanks, Mayor Clark. Through the chair to Managing Director Panco. So I just want to paraphrase so I know that I'm understanding properly. If we changed the medium residential limit to 10.5, that would become a universal change to all MDP medium, hold on just a second. But for this particular incident, we are using a contract to make the change so that the medium residential doesn't have to all be changed. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yes, through Mayor Clark, we're proposing the tool to implement the height restriction be as part of the sales contract. And of course, we always have conditions as part of our sales contract. So if the sale didn't go through, the land would revert back to us. We would still retain control of that height restriction for any future development, which of course would, once it's built and would last for quite some time. We do also have Planner Irwin here, if he'd like to speak to any of the other elements referenced, but essentially separating the two where the zoning would be either single family or medium density compared to current state of mixed use. And we are proposing that the tool to control the height restriction would be through contract. But specifics, either Manager Buckner or Planner Irwin could speak to.
Follow-up question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, through the chair. For peace of mind of the community, is it possible to make an amendment to this motion that states the 10.5 limit? Or has that already been requested? I know that it was
will leave
implied,
that to
but-
council, but staff would readily accept that, yes, of course.
Okay.
I have additional speakers, but I'm just wondering if we can get a motion. Okay, you're going to do the motion, Councillor Hirsch.
I move that council directs administration to bring forward a land use bylaw amendment for council's consideration for 1064 First Street Southwest. Consider the property be rezoned to medium-density residential and the height of development of the property be restricted to 10.5 meters or 2 stories and managed through, to a maximum of 10.5 meters or 2 stories and managed through the conditions of a purchase and sales agreement between the city and the potential purchaser.
I'll second.
I have a question about the wording. It is possible that someone might have a creative use for a project that is 10.5 meters but not 2 stories, or 2 stories and not 10.5 meters. So that's just, we're saying a maximum of 2 stories. Are there other things that could be 10.5 meters that would exceed 2 stories?
Through the chair, that is a possibility. The wording that's within the motion, where it notes to limit development to the maximum of 2 stories or the maximum building height of 10.5 meters, whichever is less. That might be wording that aligns with what the intent of the motion was.
I think it's probably fine, but Councillor Hirsch, you made the motion?
Yeah, I think the intentionality is the exterior height. If a developer wanted 1 floor of cathedral ceilings as high as council chambers, that's completely within their design. But I think the idea, certainly what I've been hearing, supported by Councillor Dumanowski's point as well, is that it's the height restriction that the consideration is. And I support that as well, as we consider this a bit of an infill project, and I think we got to be considerate of who we're dealing with, so.
Thank you. Okay, I have Councillor Knodel next, but I think that, yeah, okay. And then Councillor Hirsch said his thing, Councillor Sharps.
Thank you. I just had a quick question. So the land use bylaw was supposed to come to us for approval, and it's been pushed off till Q1 of 2026 as well. So let's say it goes back and it gets approved and it changes the zoning definitions. So if it changes the definitions of medium density and let's just say it's 2 different, does it put the buyer or the neighborhood in a position where it could go through SDAB as a conflict?
Through the chair, to Councillor Sharps, that is a risk with this. And if there's a new land use bylaw that happens to change what the zoning is for this property, that is a potential concern. But it is something too that understanding what the concerns are today with council is something we can still manage through the purchase and sales agreement. We may have to re-review what the zoning is when a new land use bylaw comes into play.
So I guess I would ask for, notwithstanding this, as a pledge from administration to say when the land use bylaw comes up for revision, that this is absolutely to come in front of the next council for adoption. Because otherwise, I can see us going through exactly what they went through a year, and they had to go in front of SDAB and appeal all of this, and it was very painful for everybody. So I guess that would be my biggest concern, is that it puts us in a legal quandary.
Is it the case, though, that, like, we could, through the purchase and sale contract, limit the height under any zoning? Okay, so
Yeah, through the chair to Mayor Clark,
regardless
you
of.
could do that, yes.
Yeah, so,
Yep.
okay, go ahead.
So do we need to, no, do we need to change that motion then?
I feel like we don't, because for me, the key thing is the height, not necessarily the zoning.
Correct. I see what you're saying. I
But
just
I-
didn't want to leave it open for a developer or anybody to argue, well, the land use bylaw changed and then now it's 10.75, even though it's medium density, so we want to appeal that.
I'm gonna ask if Director Popoff has anything he'd like to add.
Through the chair to all council, I want to explain that, first of all, the land use bylaw would be adopted by council. So that is your bylaw, and these are your regulations. When we run a process like an MDP review or a zoning bylaw review, we look at the macro needs of the community, and we come up with recommendations for various zones. We speak with key stakeholders like properties, and we determine what their needs are. In this particular case, it's very clear that there's been a lot of feedback coming to council and to staff, and that there's a desire to have a height limit on this property. We would honor that, and we would have a particular zone or ensure that there is agreement in the future to honor that, because after all, we're looking at what the compelling public interest is. There's been more dialogue with regard to this property than many within the city. So we're going to recognize that through the zoning bylaw as feedback that we've received and as guidance for this particular parcel. So we will honor that, because it's clear that there's been a lot more dialogue with regard to this property than most within the municipality. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. Councillor Sharps?
Yeah, I just had a follow-up, and my follow-up question would be probably to Director Popoff is, what is the change if the words, I can talk honestly, to be rezoned to medium density changes to be rezoned to low density? What is the significant changes?
Through the chair, are you asking what the changes would be?
Single family, I think you
Single
were
family.
referring to.
So is it just one unit, or can it be two yes, okay, I'll let Mr. Irwin.
Yeah,
He just jumped up.
I would explain that, but
Sure.
just to restate, it is your prerogative. If you were to ask for low density zone, there'd be implications that we'd look at and advise you on, like costs, but it is your prerogative to change zoning on any property within the city.
Do you know what that implication is my question.
Through the chair to Councillor Sharps. When it comes to this property and considering it for single family, we did look at what would be required in order to facilitate that, and there's likely another $300,000 to $400,000 worth of servicing work that would be required to allow it to be single family residential. So knowing what those costs are and what we're selling the property for, we would be at a financial loss in doing that. And so it wouldn't be advantageous for us to pursue that as a property the city is looking to sell.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McGrogan.
Thank you. I'm going to register for the dumb question of the night. So is 10.5 meters in height considered from the front of that property or the back? Because it's got quite a slope to it. So how do you determine what 10.5 meters? Is it from the back of the property and the front? And then how many meters might be the difference?
Through the chair to Councillor McGrogan, so that would be from grade.
from the highest point. So it'd be, if you're looking at the back, it'd be 10.5 meters from the back to the top if you're dealing with the slope. And that's, it, you have to consider, I guess, built form when you're looking at height, because the grade in the first floor, it's, I can read the definition, it can be quite confusing on how to actually determine the height, but so it varies depending on where the first floor is. So the building height is the vertical distance between the geodetic elevation of the floor on the first story and the highest point of the roof. But then a story means that portion of a building which is situated between the top of any floor and the top of the floor next above it. And if there is no floor above it, that portion between the top of the floor and the ceiling above it, the floor of the first story is the first floor within 2 meters of grade. So we really got to analyze the floor plans to see, which is the first story. But generally speaking, it would be from the back on that property.
Thank you. Just some comments. So, having heard all this is pretty confusing for, I think, the people in the neighborhood that, they want to, I guess they want some assurance that they're not going to be back in this position, and I understand that. And I've heard since I've been on council how important it is to make sure we don't radically change the feeling and the use of a neighborhood. So I think that's why they came here the first time. And it's why it just seems to me that option 2 is the best option. And again, I'm just going to say that I think that option 2 being direct control, having owned a direct control property, commercial property in the past, that we use as commercial, it actually, it makes a lot of sense to me. And it actually allows the council of the time to actually approve the use in a way that the neighbors and the community, that balance of what's good for the neighborhood and what's good for our community. So I'm not going to support this motion, but I would support option 2. So I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Hirsch.
Just wanted to speak in favor of the motion. I think as far as the medium density, we've always talked about the appropriateness of the development relative to infrastructure. So medium density does allow for again, I'm not going to get into the definition, but it does allow units to be there on a major, relatively major road that has access to bus routes, has access to that, to services that, again, would be in keeping in terms of who would be possibly living there. The 10.5 meters, I appreciate the commentary on the takeoff point, because that does make sense. I just think that there's consideration of, I guess, the residents there that are saying, hey, I just don't literally want the shadow, preeminent shadow on my property forever, which does lead me back to the question on setbacks. So on this particular property, so we talked about where do you do the takeoff of the 10.5, but actually I'd like to understand what sort of setbacks are on that property as well. What's the setback on the back portion of the property to what you can build versus the side setbacks in the front?
And, yeah, go ahead. I'm just going to reference, this is in our land use bylaw, section 6.3.4.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Through the chair to Councillor Hirsch. So it really depends on what that built form is. So for example, single family homes, minimum rear setback would be 6 meters. One thing to consider in low density residential is you're allowed backyard suites as well. And those you can have, I believe, within 1.5 meters, maybe 3 meters to that back property line and up to 8 meters in height. So you have accessory structures as well. When you're dealing with medium density units, generally the setback is greater to accommodate a bigger mass of a building. So an apartment, for example, you could have a 2-story apartment that needs to be 7.5 meters away from that property line. And on that property, you're dealing with the exterior setbacks as well. You have about 3 meters for those setbacks. So generally speaking, depends on what the built form is, but 6 meters for low density, 7 for medium density roughly.
Row houses, townhouses.
Row houses, townhouses, yeah, you can have 2-unit row houses in low density. You can have as many row houses fit in medium density, so those uses, that structure is allowed in both districts, but in different chunks of built form.
Yeah, okay, thank you for that. I guess why I'm comfortable with the medium density with those restrictions is it does come to a compromise, because don't forget, we're trying to sell this property. And I've been around long enough to say the direct control, although I appreciate Councillor McGrogan's point on, it does lead to clumsy developer waiting for the meetings to happen. It may not be clear, because DC means anything can happen. And I guess for the developer that we're trying to sell to, they want some consistency, being able, and I mean, at the end of the day, what I like about this is all you're doing is putting a building covenant on the purchase agreement. It has nothing to do with any type of bylaw zoning or anything like that. It's no different than when Desert Bloom was built and everyone had to agree to clay tiles if you're adjacent to the golf course. It's a building control that the builder put in there and said, hey, if you're still interested, then buy it. But we're gonna put this in and this in and this in, and if you're okay with that, we've got a deal. And that's what this is all about. That's why I'm in favor of it as it stands now, with that being listed in the purchase and sales agreement. Thanks.
Councillor Dumanowski.
Thank you. Through the chair, I, again, appreciating that what I see before me meets the spirit of the motion I had originally presented last time. I appreciate the clarity, the conversation around which option and density is appropriate. Again, this becomes part of that public record. I don't want anyone to forget, and I'm hearing that. Medium density, I think, with that height restriction, it fits well for lots of reasons. One, it creates specificity that a proposed developer wants. You're right, direct control, we used to do a lot of them in the past, and to the point of nauseam at times, because that's what was being brought forward, or that was what council of the day felt was the best control. But if we have the right development zoning and the restrictions therein, we potentially meet everyone's interest, because we allow for greater density, which means we're not having to put in additional sunken costs. The neighborhood has indicated they're not opposed to a variety of developments, as long as, again, height is being the big one, setbacks and other things. But, there are other concerns which are not as materially present in this motion, is traffic impact, et cetera. So, the fact of the matter is, I believe this achieves all things in the best compromise to all parties, including the city, who has a responsibility to sell the land and create opportunities for a greater tax base, but also the neighborhood. And so with those added clarifications, I will be supporting it.
Councillor Van Dyke.
Thank you, through the chair. I just wanted to say that I support this motion with that amendment of the 10.5 meters and 2 stories. I think that adds some clarity. I think a medium density residential suits this neighborhood. Within the next city block, there's attached 2-story townhouses and an entire street of duplexes and bi-level duplexes. And so this is not out of the ordinary for that neighborhood in appearance and style of home, but I think it also meets the needs of the community and addresses their concerns, so I support it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councillor Sharps and Councillor Hyder. I'm going to go to Councillor Hyder first.
Thanks, Mayor Clark, and through the chair. I will support this motion with the height restrictions in there. This topic just reminds us how important it is to support the members of our community and make sure we're really listening to the needs of citizens, as well as, doing the best we can for our city organization. I was actually quite surprised to see this come forward again, not as how I'd remembered Councillor Dumanowski's motion. So I'm appreciative of how this motion is reading, and I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Councillor Sharps.
Thank you. So I need to go back and get some clarifying questions, if that's okay. So when I asked earlier about low-density residential, that does include duplexes, correct? It's not just a single residential. So it could be a row of duplexes there.
Through the chair to Councillor Sharp, so I'll provide some clarity here on some of the differences between RLD and RMD. So with low-density residential, you're allowed single detached houses with secondary suites, single detached houses with backyard suites, attached housing up to 2 units, and a duplex, which is an up-down 2-unit building for us. In medium-density residential, you're allowed attached housing, but you need a minimum of 3 or 4 units. Multiple-unit residential development, apartments or duplex, and a multiple-unit residential development could be a triplex. So really the difference between low density and medium density, you're looking at a duplex versus a triplex in some cases.
And the height's the same?
The heights are a little different. So in low density residential, for all the uses, it's 3 stories up to a max of 12 meters. So you could have a 3-story single family home. The backyard suites are 8 meters. In medium density residential, it's 3 stories for attached housing. So that's the same multiple unit residential. So triplex, fourplex, or any building with multiple unit building with exterior to the access to the outside. 3 stories up to 12 meters. Apartments are the main one where you see a difference, which is 5 stories up to 20 meters.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm not going to support this, and I'm going to tell you why. When I go to that area, I do agree with Councillor Van Dyke. If you go further down the block, it's very much in line. The whole area of duplexes or, houses or apartments or that are 2 stories, so 10.5 meters. But in that particular block, I would disagree that it is aligned. So the slope on that property is so intense. It is actually, I don't think you appreciate it until you're actually standing in one of the homes in that are on that area. So to walk down the street, it's all level. So I think it's easy and it actually fits and it would be beautiful. But I think those homes that are actually going to be impacted by this are still going to struggle with this. I would much rather see direct control and the council of the day be able to work with, and I know it's not fun or waiting but there is a well-established community back there that have put a lot of time and effort into their homes. And I've stood back there after the last, this came to council. I stood back there and I met with many of the Harlow residents, and it is overwhelming to stand in one of their living rooms and look outside and think what 10.5 meters looks like. So I still think it's an amazing property. I think that I kind of believe in like our land department that they could sell ice to an Eskimo. So I'm actually quite happy to see it at direct control. So I can't support this, but I would support direct control if, what? Okay, yeah, that's where I'm not going to support it.
Okay. My 2 cents are, do you want to go ahead? Just before we vote, I am interested in maximizing the housing as much as possible, the value of the land. From my perspective, direct control gives less certainty to the current property owners, neighborhood, and any potential developer. So I am going to support this because I think medium density residential maximizes or provides us a greater opportunity to add additional housing. And of course, the planning department will have, their input on slope and grading and all of that kind of stuff to make sure that the slope is not an issue. So I would support it. And with that, I am going to call for the vote. Councillor Robbins, how do you vote?
I vote in favor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And that passes. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Next up is the Respect in the Workplace training, item 11.6. I'm going to put that to Acting City Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. Before you on page 105 is the request for decision for the Respect in the Workplace training. It's Directive 3 of the implementation from the municipal inspection. The recommended motion that Council direct administration to engage a qualified consultant to deliver the respectful workplace training in accordance with Directive 3 of the municipal inspection as mandated by the Minister of Municipal Affairs. Also to the scope that needs to be submitted to the minister is on page 109. And there's a couple questions about perhaps if extenuating circumstances, someone cannot attend, that we still need to proceed with the training. And so if council is good with this scope, it'll be submitted to the Minister of Municipal Affairs tomorrow. And I will be reaching out to dates that would be, that you guys would be available for.
Okay, thank you. Page 119 is the scope outlined. We are just being asked to approve the scope at this time.
Correct. And so what we're doing in the background is reaching out to consulting firms, external consulting firms to be able to do the course with us.
Your Worship, I'm going to move that Council direct administration to engage a qualified consultant to deliver respectful workplace training in accordance with Directive 3 of the municipal inspection as mandated by the Minister of Municipal Affairs.
I will second that motion.
Thank you. I don't see any speakers, so we'll vote on the motion. Councillor Robbins, how do you vote?
I vote in favor.
Thank you. That's unanimous. Next up is City Council remuneration at item 12.1 under committee business. I suppose Acting City Manager?
Thank you, Worship. Before you is a request for decision for City Council remuneration for the upcoming term. The recommended motion that Council approve the amendments to the Council remuneration policy 8043 as presented to set remuneration for the Council members for the upcoming term. So the RFD is on page 111 and 112, and comparatives are on 113.
I must have different page numbers than you. I'm seeing it at 123.
Well, we all know
I guess starting
off,
121, yeah.
We all know that. I'm a little off, so it's okay. It's all right. But you're with me. You know what I'm talking about. And then also too is the policy with the red line, with the changes as well, Your Worship. And then at the back is the recommended remuneration. And
Thank you very much.
And also, sorry, and online we have Carla Koken, our Director of People Service as well. Rondi and Carla worked on this policy together.
Thank you very much. From my perspective, I think this needs to go back for one more look. I'll tell you a couple of my concerns. So this is for council, like this is entirely kind of council's policy. So my concerns are the policy refers to procedures that are administered by the city manager, but it doesn't, I can't see procedures in here. Additionally, 1.06 per diem allowance. So the per diem allowance is outlined in our, I always forget the name, but vehicle and personal expense policy. So I'm not really sure why we're making a different definition here. I think we should just say that it's per diems as per the policy. Additionally, in that vehicle and personal expense policy, I approve council's expenses. In this policy, the city manager approves extra expenses. So that is at 306, I think. Yeah, so council members who incur other incidental and reasonable business-related expenses, example, photocopying, parking, when attending events, etc., consistent with their office shall be reimbursed for said expenses at the discretion of the city manager. So that's inconsistent with the other policy. And I also do feel like, just as with any, like we were talking about with the expense disclosure, if council really should have its own budget for, like, individually, if for photocopying, parking, that kind of thing. Parking, I believe, is also dealt with in the vehicle and expense policy. So I think that council, when we have to ask permission for photocopying from the city manager, that creates kind of a awkward relationship. So I'm just wondering if like, and obviously council can weigh in as well, but I think perhaps this might need to go back to have a look at both this being a purely council policy. The procedures I don't think exist, or they would be up to council to determine. And I know Acting Managing Director Barta said that there is a business expense policy that's being developed. We saw an earlier draft. I don't know when that's going to come forward. I guess it would be ideal if we could align this with the new policy, but since it's not currently in force, just to take a look at making sure that the policies are consistent, and perhaps moving, if we want to deal with per diem and expenses for council in this policy, that we amend the other policy to take council out of it. Any discussion? Councillor Sharps?
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I would completely agree. So we've talked about getting permission from our one employee on other issues as well, and that doesn't make a lot of sense. So you don't usually go to your employee to get permission or authorization. So and I've talked to some of the other city councilors. They're either given budgets that they're responsible for, or the mayor signs off, and I'm fine with either. But it doesn't make sense to have an employee sign off. It's no different than what we're trying to stop with, or what we say about P cards. And, you know, you don't have your staff sign off on your P card, so it's the same thing.
Councillor Van Dyke?
Yes, thank you through the chair. My question is about timing. We only have 2 meetings left, and the initial purpose of this policy when it was developed was to remove the responsibility of councillors making decisions about their own pay. So that's why it comes at the end of a council term, so that the current council is making the decision for the next council. I just don't want this to get pushed in a way that it then does not meet those timing requirements and puts the next council in an awkward position, or potentially pushes it 4 years into the future. So I would like to know if administration feels that they can do that, the changes and review in time to bring it to the next council meeting to be passed, or whatever. If there's any other considerations that need to be made, that they be voiced at this meeting, so that those things can all be incorporated in time for a council decision prior to the next council.
I will just note that we actually now have 3 meetings left, but I take your point on the timing. It is tight, but Acting City Manager?
So I'd recommend that, I believe we have ALR on the 9th, I believe. So it'll go back, if council is good with it, go back to ALR, and then come back to the 15th meeting.
You may, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. So just one more question, because I'd rather ask it now than have it at the next meeting and then ask for more information then. My question is this: since this policy is quite new, it was developed with the previous council. I'm assuming at that time that there was a jurisdictional scan done and an evaluation of what other councils were paid. And the decision made to index on CPI was made at that time. So my question is, why would we just not continue the CPI indexing each year rather than now setting a new baseline? Because that previous baseline was only developed 4 years ago. Thank you.
Good question, go ahead.
Carla, would you be able to address that?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Clark, and through the chair to Councillor Van Dyke. So we did do another jurisdictional scan, and it's in your attachment as well, in your package. So the CPI index is applied to every year of council or mayor being in their position, where an increase is done every year. And so then at the end of the 4 years, it is typical practice that we do more of that bigger scan of where do we land in comparators. So we could put something in the policy if there's more of a comfort of we only do CPI every year and we don't do a comparator scan. We wanted to make sure that where council salary and where the mayor's salary were in line with what the rest of the province would do, where the rest of the province is at as well. So, and we did take that average of our comparators, which is group 4. Group 4 is the group that we typically take comparators through on a number of things. The other 3 groups are more so for information, but we can design that much differently going forward if there's a comfort of, rather than seeing where we are in either a leading or a lagging market.
Thank you for that. Just a follow-up question on that. So my question around these current pay scales, I know the city of Airdrie and I know that the city of St. Albert have very recently done a review of their councillor duties and pay scales. So I know that their pay scales on here would be very up to date based on a thorough evaluation of duties and time and all those kinds of things. But these other comparators in group 4, I'm just wondering, is there any way to know when their last policy updates occurred and their last review of their duties and pay were done?
Through the chair to Councillor Van Dyke, we didn't do that thorough of a scan. We know that the ones that the salary that we have on the chart for you today is their current salary as of when this was done it was June or July. I would have to double check with someone on my team for that exact date, but we didn't go into depth about responsibilities or duties. We did just keep it at the current remuneration at their level today. But if that's something we could look into it, that would take some time for sure, but we could look into it.
That's fine. I don't think we have time for that. I just wanted to know how that was reviewed. Thank you.
Sure, you bet.
Councillor McGrogan.
Thank you. I'm really glad you asked that question because I'd actually emailed our city manager during the meeting to ask her to tell us what council and the mayor received for remuneration at the beginning of our term. And she's so busy focusing on the meeting, I don't think she got to that question that I sent to her, which I appreciate. And I just wanted to give you the heads up that I was going to ask it. So I guess I'm just asking now because every year we have been getting a CPI bump, we'll call it. I think every year it's been quite, I think, appropriate, or even more so. I think the first year was 6 point some %. So I just want to make sure that the community is aware when we make this decision, hopefully on the 15th, that they're aware of what we were making at the beginning of this term as also another comparator. So it's transparent.
So the mayor's is redlined, but I think, so annual base salary effective November. So is that the 45,476?
Carolyn, do you want me to take that?
Yeah, please.
Through the, to Mayor Clark, so yes, in the red line version of the previous policy, the starting salary, which would have been 4 years ago for councillor, was 45,476, and starting salary for the mayor's position was 136,639. So with the comparators that we did, and we did take an average of our comparator group, that was where we arrived with the numbers of what will be, if this policy is approved, what will be at November 3rd of this year. But the starting salaries were obviously much lower 4 years ago.
Thank you very much. And I do note that there is additionally, just so that it's clear, there's additionally per diem allowance outlined in this chart that's different from the the travel expenses one, so that should be looked at as well. And I would say it's important just for council's information that the per diem in, like, that definition of per diem that has changed. I think previous councils, there may have been it may have been used during this council, I'm not 100% sure, but to reimburse an individual who has to take off work to attend something. So I'm not sure that that's still included or should be included, but I'm just pointing that out. Do you have something else, Councillor McGrogan? Councillor Sharps.
Thank you. I just had a quick question for Director Koken about when you did this jurisdictional scan, do you recall if anybody looked at the amount of councillors at every jurisdiction or just in group 4? Are we all looking at the same amount around the table?
Through the chair to Councillor Sharps, we didn't look at the number of councillors, but that could be easily done if we bring this back for the 15th for information, if you'd like.
If it's doable, that'd be great. If it's not, it's not a deal breaker. Okay, thank you.
No, we can do that.
So I would be looking for a motion to refer this back to ALR.
I can make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. I don't see any further.
Sorry, can
Go
I just
ahead.
clarity?
Yep.
So it's going back to ALR and then back to council. It won't go back through admin. It'll be back here for the 15th. Okay, thank you.
It won't go through admin? Mike, sorry.
ALR, the 9th, it'll go to admin and then back on the 29th or the 6th.
Yeah. I feel like as long as it gets back here in the appropriate timeline and goes through ALR.
Because we could bring it back the 29th or the 6th.
Okay.
Okay, I was just, it's already been in front of council, so if it's just going back to ALR, is there any reason we can't just, like, I've got a whole whack of stuff from DNI coming straight back to council, just to expedite it, instead of going through DNI?
Yep.
Is that, do you feel emotionally attached to this, city manager, that it needs to come back through DNI? Or through?
ALR?
Admin,
Okay.
admin. So I'm asking just ALR, either way, just one committee and back versus two committees and back.
I would recommend that it goes to admin as well, and ALR. So I would recommend that it goes to ALR, admin, and then comes to council.
So 29th then, because it won't make the next one.
Okay. Let's vote. We are voting on a motion to refer this back to ALR. Yeah. Councillor Robbins, how do you vote?
I vote in favor.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have business arising from closed session, council appointments of public members to advisory boards. And I will ask first I'll ask for the city clerk to read out the names and then we will vote.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. And through the chair, so during closed council today, after recommendation from Administrative and Legislative Review Committee on the 12th, council decided on the successful applicants. So for the Community Vibrancy Advisory Board, we have Sarah McNeil with appointment expiring December 2027, and that'll be December 31st, 2027. Jim Kuhn with appointment expiring December 31st, 2026. And then for the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board, Aaron, I apologize, I might brutalize this last name. Thank you, with appointment expiring December 31st, 2025.
Do you need a motion?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
I move that council approves the appointments that city clerk just listed to the Community Vibrancy Advisory Board and the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board as presented during closed session.
Thank you very much.
I'll second.
Thank you, and we will vote. Councillor Robbins, how do you vote?
I vote in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. I don't see any notices of motion, so that concludes our business. Any objections to adjourning? Okay, we are adjourned.